Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you're watching first part of What If Naruto gained Nano Machine Technology. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
How goes the experiment? A tall man in what looked like an official's uniform asked, facing a tall woman in a white suit with the emblem of what looked like a shield with 3 swords in the center and 2 dragons chasing each other around it behind a blue flame. At first, the attractive blonde woman didn't respond, but the man ignored her serious and focused demeanor as she read the data on what looked to be a handheld computer pad. She turned to face the man who had questioned her as soon as she had finished reading the reports. The project is progressing nicely, sir. We have had some initial problems with the neural programming, but it seems that some time and extra work was needed to fix the known errors in the systems. The biometal has been fully infused with the needed nanocomputers, nano assemblers, neural network fibers, power core units, and power transmitters to begin the rest of the core programming. As of now, we merely need to install the last program package into the nanocomputer's main collective hard drive. We've also installed a variety of weapons to further boost combat functions and adaptability, so that will be a good edge as well for the project once the experiment is complete. Good. Exactly how many of the models are present? We only have at least 3 models. All 3 have the same level of abilities and systems. They will serve as the foundational testbeds for the later models. What's the main power source for the models? Bioenergy, sir. Bioenergy. I was under the impression that we were using the main miniaturized fusion core system, just like the other combat models. Normally, sir, that would have been our choice, but we have decided to follow through some new breakthroughs in the medical research conducted before. We're using the old theory of bioenergy placed forward by Professor Deckard Reigns at least 10 years ago. Professor Deckard? Wasn't his theory on bioenergy supposed to be considered as the only failure he had in his career? Yes, but it has been discovered that he was correct. According to research, while the body does produce its own electrical power to run the basic organic functions, there is another more unique power source in the human body. This power can be accessed only high levels of mental and physical training and through several other methods, and the level of power is determined by one's physical condition and stamina, that is bioenergy. Through the mentioned methods, the bioenergy is rumored to be able to augment a person's physical abilities and can be used in a variety of ways that seems far-fetched at first, but possible indeed. Bioenergy has gone by many names over the years, and Deckard was able to record the names in his research, and we know many of them. Oh, some of the terms include ki, kai, the yin and yang, chakra, and many other terms that are too long to fully place on record. The bioenergy is also determined to exist as a near-invisible field around a person that can only be seen with special sensors. Normally, a person has what we have determined a reserve of bioenergy, and since it is naturally grown energy and is able to be naturally replenished, this would be an ideal power source for the suits. Once the suits built in computer networks determine the level of the wearer's bioenergy reserve levels, they will siphon amounts of that power with no side effects and store it throughout the suit in hidden micro-power reactor cores that were modified to house and use bioenergy to power the suits, and also, if needed, to improve key functions in the systems. The nano machines will also reconstruct the body in order to suit the needs of the suit and make its user a much stronger person to handle the demands of the suit. That would mean an increase of overall psychical traits such as muscle mass, stamina, height, metabolism, body functions and more. In simple terms, the body is rebuilt internally to be at the peak of human perfection and ability. Interesting. What else are you planning on doing with the suits? We've been working on a new combat program that we've dubbed the Persona Drive System, or the PD system for short. How will that work? As she turned to a massive core display of information in what seemed to be some sort of massive data stream, the female scientist flipped through a number of holograms that highlighted bands of human soldiers in combat armor and then other figures in combat scenarios and situations. Normally, an AI program that is used to supplement a combat system computer relies on a key framework of information to serve as the basic foundation of the program. However, in the case of the Persona Drive system, the computer samples the psychological profile of its host, user, and then creates a combat program to suit the fighting potential and preference of the said host, user. This program is then named as its combat persona, and that will determine the weapon load out of the suit itself, custom tailored to suit the user's personality profile and the combat scenario. I see. Is it finished? Yes, we have installed the basic core functions of the PD system into the 3 suits, and they will be ready in a few moments. The Persona Drive and the built-in AI computer will passive evaluate its user's opponents through scanning and determine the threat level of the foe. If the threat is minimal and no true danger to the user, then the suit will remain inactive. If the threat is considerable, then the suit will activate and protect the user and aid it in combat. If the threat is grave, then the suit will unlock some of the more lethal weapon systems to deal with the threat effectively. This way the suit will determine who are combatants and non-combatants. Will the suit be present? No, it will remain in the body unless activated either by conscious thought or by the PD system's automatic response modes. The suit will appear and then cover the user in the biometal. Until then, the person will appear normal. But then there was a loud noise, and the whole room started to shake, and the lights went out. People were milling around as doors opened and heavily armed soldiers rushed in, all of them wearing the same symbols on their armor, one of whom had rank bars. The man who had been speaking to the scientist earlier spoke to the soldier. "What the hell is going on? We're under attack, sir." "How many?" "Unknown, but they are heading right for this room. My guess is that they're after the suits." As the building continued to tremble and creak from the attack outside the rooms, the two individuals exchanged a gloomy glance. Keeping that in mind, the man turned and ordered the other employees. "Have all data and prototype designs destroyed immediately. Prepare the teleportation grid system and send the suits back to High Command. We cannot let decades of work fall in the hands of our enemies, and begin full evacuation." As the scientists started entering coordinates into some kind of computer terminal, the containers held what appeared to be containment fluid that kept the suits fully active and functioning. The people hurried to do what they could and started turning on purging programs to all of their computer systems and data drives. Additionally, the suits were revealed for the first time, but they were not towering suits of metal armor, but rather pure liquid, like a massive blob of deep black goo. It looked like a massive archway. When the containers were first added to the mass, the gates system absorbed them in a huge flash of light. However, a strong energy surge struck the computer, causing the gate to spark brightly and start acting strangely as well. The scientist who attempted to determine what had happened to the key system was addressed by the group's leader. "What happened? Ma'am, the last attack has caused a massive power fluctuation in the teleportation system core. It's caused the teleport system to send the containers beyond the required coordinates to an unknown heading." In a clearing when Naruto and his team left Wave Country following the defeat of Gato and his men, the blonde genin still felt sad about the deaths of both Zabuza and Haku and wondered how things would turn out when they returned to Konoha. Naruto yawned as he sat down near a tree and looked at the moon and stars. He glanced at his team and saw Sakura talking to the always silent Sasuke while Kakashi was currently reading his book. He still thought of Sasuke as a bit of a brat and a rival, but he wasn't all that horrible, though he wished Sakura would think better of him. Then, since it would be at least another day and a half before they arrived in Konoha, Naruto made the decision to go for a walk, which would undoubtedly be beneficial. "I'll go for a walk and I'll be back," Kakashi said, looking up from his book. "Be careful and don't get lost." Naruto, "Got it." "Better do what Kakashi said." "Naruto, you do get lost and it would be a pain to look for you in the dark." Naruto snorted and glared at Sasuke, who returned the glare. The two genin turned their heads, and Naruto left. Sakura was a little perplexed by this and hoped that there wouldn't be any miscommunication between her two teammates. Though he acknowledged that when the time came for him to learn some new jutsu, it would truly give Sasuke the shock of his life. Naruto entered the forest and started to consider a few things that would give him the advantage over Sasuke and demonstrate to the Uchiha prodigy that he was not some doby and that he was angry when Sasuke would insult him. However, Naruto's thoughts were abruptly interrupted when a huge, blinding flash of light appeared directly in front of him, and a huge wave of heat and force knocked him down. The force wave had broken the night's silence, and the whole area shook with enough force to make even a large number of bunched, exploding tags suddenly going up sound like a weak firecracker going off. He was safe because, amazingly, the heat was not intense enough to burn or scorch him. "What the heck?" Naruto gasped and briefly believed that he had stumbled into an ambush. When he was able to move, he got up and tried to look around, but his gaze was drawn to a crater in the ground. He crawled slowly in its direction, pulled out a kunai, and stood up, prepared to fight if necessary. But at the moment, nothing threatening was visible, and Naruto peered into the crater before noticing something. What the heck was that? Kakashi sensed. As Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi approached the location where Naruto had disappeared, they asked in order to learn more about the nature of the enormous wave of force, heat, and light. "I'm not so sure, Sakura, but be ready for anything." The Jonin pulled out a kunai and started to advance, but they stopped when they saw Naruto approaching them. To their surprise, he appeared to be holding something in his hands and was essentially unharmed. Naruto. Presenting the container to his team, the blonde ninja grinned. "Look what I found, guys. This is one really weird container." As the Genin team approached the blonde, they were curious about what was going on because the container had odd markings and words that were completely unfamiliar to them. Sasuke was the first to speak. "What the heck happened to you? And where did that come from?" When Naruto told them about the flash of light and how he discovered the container in a crater with the ground turned to glass, He was not aware that the container was equipped with a special device that required the user to place his hand on the small panel. Naruto's finger was directly on top of the panel, causing a tiny needle to emerge, and the container then glowed white. Ow! The group watched as a red spot appeared in the container due to the light, and then the red spot was somehow absorbed by the black liquid. Then the container seemed to open and the fluid flowed out, leaving behind the black goo that burst out and landed on the ground. Naruto felt a brief stab of pain on his hand, so he instinctively dropped the container, which amazingly did not break even after falling hard on a rock. No, Naruto. Don't, when the liquid abruptly reared back as if it were alive, shocking the group with its abrupt lifelike action. Kakashi's warning was too late. After that, they noticed an odd light emerge from the dark liquid, which was focused on Naruto. The light was there for a split second, after which Naruto could only stare as if the light were holding him in place. The deep black liquid that erupted from the unidentified object suddenly leapt outward and slammed straight into Naruto, covering him almost as if it were actually alive. Kakashi and the other members of Naruto's team watched in horror and shock as the liquid covered his body with terrifying speed. Despite Naruto's valiant attempts to stop it, he yelled as he turned to face his team. "Help me! Get this stuff off of me!" Kakashi hurried in and attempted to assist Naruto, but to his surprise, the liquid started to seep into him through his clothing and appeared to enter his skin. Meanwhile, more of the liquid rushed up to cover Naruto's entire face for a brief moment before starting to seep through his skin and enter his eyes, nose, ears, and mouth within a few seconds of covering his face. Kakashi caught Naruto as he fell to the ground. "Naruto, are you all right?" After turning to face Kakashi, Naruto answered. I feel weird, like there's something inside me." Naruto said nothing more before abruptly losing consciousness. Naruto. Later on, it had been extremely terrifying for the entire Genin team ever since that black liquid had somehow gotten into Naruto's body. Something was happening, and the Jonin had no idea what could be happening in front of him. Kakashi checked Naruto while the Genin slept on the bedroll that he had been placed on. He was relieved to find that Naruto was still breathing, that his pulse was steady, and that he currently had a heartbeat. When he checked on him after he had lost consciousness, however, he had been extremely cold for the last hour or so, and his temperature would regularly rise occasionally as though he had some kind of fever. Kakashi then looked at Naruto's bag, which contained the odd container that had once contained the liquid. "I've never seen anything like it before. What was that liquid substance? Was it some kind of creature?" After arriving at the scene with a container filled with cold spring water and towels, Sasuke sat down next to Sakura, who had been tasked with keeping an eye on Naruto while she cleaned the blonde's head, which was uncovered by his forehead protector band. The pink-haired Kunoichi turned to Sasuke and spoke as she wiped his forehead and squeezed out the water. The blonde ninja would frequently groan in agony and get feverish, which was concerning. "What was that thing, Sasuke-kun? I wish I knew. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Nothing in the academy books mentioned anything like that." Sakura then spoke as she turned to face Kakashi. "Do you have any idea about that stuff, Kakashi-sensei?" The Jonin gave a headshake. "I don't, Sakura, but whatever the case, Naruto is not dead and amazingly unharmed despite the spikes in his temperature and the moans of pain. But this has to be placed under secrecy. Once we get back to Konoha, I'll have a few words with the Hokage and see if we can track down what that mysterious gunk was." They were unaware that, right now, minuscule machines were invading Naruto's body and settling there, cell by cell, until the odd objects started to move. The following day, as he and the other members of Team 7 arrived in Konoha, Kakashi was carrying Naruto on his back at this point. The blonde Genin was still unconscious and not responding to any kind of stimulus that he or the others had given him. Not even the smell of the ramen they had prepared from his pack could rouse him. It appeared that whatever the gunk had done to him was very successful in keeping Naruto completely unconscious. When the group reached the gate, Sakura was sent to the Hokage tower to summon the Hokage, and the Jonin hurried to the hospital. He instructed the medic Nin and the nurses to prepare a room for Naruto. As soon as he got to the hospital, when he was informed that the room was ready, he took the blonde inside and made the decision to wait while the medic Nins performed the examination. Following that, he waited in the hallway outside the bedroom for the medic Nin's examination results of the blonde ninja while examining the bag he was currently carrying, which still contained the strange container that Naruto had been holding that contained the gunk that had attacked him. Despite his detached demeanor, Kakashi was anxious about the entire situation and did not read his favorite book as he usually did. The Jonin sighed and wondered what exactly was happening. When he turned around, he saw that the Hokage, a number of Anbu, Iruka, Sakura, and Sasuke had all arrived. Then the Jonin were addressed by the village elder. "What happened at Wave Country, Kakashi, that sent Naruto in a coma?" The Chunin was concerned, and the Jonin could see that Iruka was thinking about the same thing. Sakura entered the room and abruptly announced that Naruto was in the hospital in a coma. He had just finished a class and was there with the Hokage to deliver the customary academic reports. Both the Chunin and the Hokage were alarmed by that. We had finished the mission and were camping out in the forest before we made it back to Konoha, but Naruto went for a walk. It seemed normal when a massive wave of force, light, and heat came out of nowhere. At first we thought it was an ambush, but there was no follow-up attack. Sakura, myself, and Sasuke moved to see what had happened when Naruto returned and was carrying this. After removing the container and demonstrating it to the group, the Jonin was relieved that Naruto would not have to endure the momentary pain because it appeared to be inactive. The two genin who were Naruto's teammates were cautious of the container, despite having seen it before, so the group viewed it with interest and caution. This thing was some sort of container, that some sort of black gunk that was suspended in it. We looked at it when it suddenly glowed white and Naruto released it in pain as if something had bitten him. The container released the fluid inside of it and then this black gunk came out and Naruto tried to touch it despite my warning, but then it reared back as if it was alive and then fired a beam at Naruto, and when the light faded, it leapt at Naruto and covered him. He tried to rip it off and called for help. I tried to reach him but the gunk seemed to seep right into his skin, and before anything could be done, it was inside Naruto. I have no idea what that thing was, but there is one thing I can be sure of: it's not like anything I have seen before. After considering that fact, the Hokage took the container and examined it closely. He couldn't help but notice that it was unlike any container he had ever seen. It had odd symbols and what appeared to be a variety of other items that didn't make sense to the elderly man. He had lived for a long time, and this was the first time in his life that he had ever seen anything like this, both as the third Hokage and when he was restored as the fourth Hokage following the death of the fourth. I have to admit, there is nothing like this in my mind either. The medic nins emerged at that moment. Excuse me, but it seems that Naruto has awakened. When the group entered, Naruto was indeed awake and appeared to be a little confused. He then started talking. Hey, where are we? What happened? It was Kakashi who spoke to Naruto first. Are you all right? After giving that question some thought, Naruto gave his best response. Yeah, I feel fine, Kakashi-sensei. I'm a little weak for some reason but still alive. What happened last night? All I remember was that black stuff covering me and then this feeling of something inside me. Naruto panicked as his memories returned to him, and he looked all over himself the moment he remembered that. What the heck happened to me? Is that stuff inside me? Get it out! Get it out! Iruka stepped forward to try to calm his student. After the group noticed that Naruto was in a panic reaching for Naruto, he addressed him as best he could. Naruto, get a grip and calm down. After struggling a little, Naruto swung his fist at a nearby wall to the surprise of almost everyone in the room, and the building, for that matter. The light punch left a melon-sized crater on the wall and caused a slight tremor in the structure. Several pieces of concrete and some plaster had even fallen clear off the wall as a result of the impact. The sight stunned the entire group, including Naruto, who calmed down and turned to face his hand. To his amazement, his hand appeared completely unharmed, with no pain at all. As he moved it back in all his life, he had never had the strength to do that to a solid concrete wall. He spoke slowly. I did that. Sakura and Sasuke's jaws dropped when they saw Naruto's sudden increase in strength, and even Iruka, the Hokage, and the Anbu were taken aback. Then the Hokage addressed Naruto. Naruto, look at me and tell me, do you feel any different? After recuperating, Naruto conversed with the Hokage. I don't know, the pain's beginning to fade away. I think I feel fine, though I am really hungry. After giving it some thought, the Hokage faced the medic nins. I want a blood sample analysis done immediately. Yes, Hokage-sama. Although Naruto disliked needles and the sight of one at the moment, he chose not to react because he might hurt someone with his sudden strength boost. He winced slightly as the needle pierced his skin, and the medic nins took a sample of his blood before the ninjas examined him closely while the others looked on. The Hokage permitted Naruto to be released after the tests were completed and the blood sample was removed for analysis. Iruka offered to take Naruto out to eat, and Naruto was delighted, forgetting the episode because he was genuinely hungry for ramen. As they departed, the other people in the room, including the Anbu, examined the harm Naruto had caused and had to concede that it was worthwhile to investigate how he had suddenly gained more strength. Just as the Hokage and his Anbu escorts made the decision to accompany the medic nin to ascertain exactly what was happening with Naruto and whether the incident involving the gunk that Kakashi mentioned had anything to do with Naruto's enhanced abilities, Kakashi himself chose to take a break from the situation, pulled out his book, and left the room. But after Sakura and Sasuke viewed the crater Naruto had created, Sakura spoke first. How was Naruto able to do that? He was never that strong when we started out on this mission. I'm not sure. Sakura, observing the crater with great attention, Sasuke pondered. There's something going on here. What was it about that black liquid that connected all of this? At the ramen stand in Ichiraku. Man, that felt great. I am so hungry after that mission. Even Tucci and Ayame were shocked to see that their favorite customer was consuming enough ramen to feed a small platoon of ninjas. As the bowls continued to pile up on the table area of the stand, and Iruka had only 3 bowls of his own. Iruka was pleased that he had been able to increase his pay as a Chunin teacher in the academy because Naruto was gorging down the ramen even faster than usual, which was difficult to believe at the moment. Naruto devoured the newest bowl as if it were his last, and as soon as he finished, he added it to the collection of bowls that now totaled at least 45, setting a new record in the eyes of everyone who was watching him. Then, with a sigh of pure joy, the blonde ninja paused and let out an explosive breath. Oh man, that really hit the spot. Wow, that's a new world record. Usually you've only reached 40 bowls of ramen, now you've gone and did 46. You must have been really hungry, Naruto. Naruto grinned and gave Tucci a nod. Yeah, old man, that was some treat, thanks for the meals. Then he smiled at Iruka and started talking. Thanks a load, Iruka-sensei, for the lunch. I really needed that after not having breakfast or dinner. After saying goodbye to Tucci and Ayame for the time being, Iruka grinned and the two agreed to spend some time discussing the mission. Naruto was at last feeling better. Though he hoped that he would have enough money to buy dinner, he was also feeling different, at least somewhat, as he occasionally experienced a slight rise in body temperature, but it was only a hot flash that would pass quickly. As the day progressed, Naruto went inside his apartment, made some food, and then finished another substantial quantity of food for dinner. The blonde made the decision to fall asleep right away in the hopes that the events would resolve themselves and that he would be able to clear his mind. He was unaware that the Hokage was discussing with Kakashi and Iruka the findings of the medical examination performed by the medic Nin on the blood sample that had been extracted from him the previous day. Are you saying that the liquid placed objects into Naruto's cells? The announcement startled Iruka because the Hokage, Naruto's guardian and unofficial brother figure in Konoha, had summoned him to the tower, being Naruto's Jonin sensei. The Jonin Kakashi was also summoned because he deserved to hear the details the medic Nins had discovered about Naruto. Yes, apparently the medic Nins had determined that the blood cells that they have acquired from Naruto for study showed through the microscopes that the blood cells appear to have been fused with some sort of device. A device? What sort of device? They do not know, Iruka. It's unlike anything we have on record. The medic Nins have searched their archives for any mention of the odd devices, but there is no mention of them, and they are so tiny that the medic Nins almost missed them. There are billions of them in the blood sample, and they seem to be totally different from any cell types in the medical texts. If that is true, then we have to assume that Naruto's entire body and cells have these devices in them. Hokage-sama, are you saying that there are billions of these unknown objects in Naruto's body cells? Yes, but that is not all. The medic Nins checked the chakra levels of the blood sample and they were astonished, because one of these new devices in Naruto's bloodstream have condensed a massive reserve of chakra into itself. Each of these devices seem to siphon and store chakra, and just one of those devices has more than enough chakra to rival a room full of Jonin. If Naruto's single blood sample revealed that one of these devices had enough chakra to dwarf even a few Jonin and their own chakra reserves, then Iruka and Kakashi were astounded by the news. Hokage-sama, does that mean that Naruto? With a nod, the Hokage answered. If this is true and one drop of Naruto's blood has billions of these devices, then this would mean that Naruto's chakra reserves would equal that of the Kyuubi itself, and that is just his normal chakra. If these devices were able to store the Kyuubi's own chakra in the same fashion and in vast quantities no less, then Naruto would be termed as a living spring of pure chakra. In this case, it seems that even without the Kyuubi's chakra fully manifesting on him, Naruto's chakra reserve is nearly 100 times more than the entire ninja forces in Konoha alone, including the Anbu ranks. Naruto's chakra reserves outshine everyone here in Konoha, making him more than capable to outlasting even the... Given that they were shocked that Naruto had not perished from the enormous waves of chakra that were inside of them, Kakashi and Iruka could only watch as the meaning soaked into them. If Naruto had used a jutsu, a NY jutsu, for that matter, the jutsu would have been enhanced to the point where it was incredibly powerful. Kakashi then expressed his opinions on the subject. This is unexpected, Hokage-sama. What do you suggest we do? After considering their current course of action, the Hokage responded. We can't do anything. So far the devices in Naruto do not seem to have a negative effect on him, But we must make sure that we get as much information we can on what this will mean for Naruto in particular. I will give orders for the medic nins to seal away all the information they had gathered on these devices. In the meantime, I want both of you to make sure that Naruto is safe and unharmed, and Kakashi. Yes. I would like you to personally let Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha know that until we have all the information we need about the liquid you described in the devices in Naruto, there will be no discussion of what happened in Wave Country. We need to make sure that nobody else is aware of this incident until we have more information. Got it? Yes, Hokage-sama. Then Kakashi said something. Hokage-sama, may I say something? All right, Kakashi, what are you proposing? They were unaware that the blonde ninja was experiencing something even more amazing deep within Naruto's body. There was a special device deep within Naruto's body that was almost finished, and it was being made by billions of nano machines. It looked like a piece of flesh that quickly merged with Naruto's body and became an easy part of it, but it was actually a small data core as the device started to power up and run its core systems and diagnostics. The system is booting up, data drives finished. Combat system parameters are being downloaded, scanning physical data and host DNA. Completed scanning and compilation of host data. Active personal drive system, installing essential components and systems. Completed host DNA scanning reveals 100 potential genetic manipulations. High system compatibility is indicated by the host physical data, but significant physical upgrades are required to improve physical condition and fully utilize combat potential. Combat persona program construction is complete. Persona drive system scan is complete. The subject demonstrates increased proficiency in close quarters and close weapons combat. Significant proficiency in long-range warfare. High levels of personal agility, balanced strength, dexterity, and hand-eye coordination. High levels of stamina, good overall endurance, exceptional healing factor, and average intelligence levels. Warning, unknown entity found. Scanning, large amounts of bioenergy found. Constructing security protocols to main and sub-data core drives and user personality matrix, possible host or potential ally. Start a program for biological enhancement and growth. All nanomachine colonies should start biological enhancement procedures to improve their overall physical attributes and abilities. They should also start building system boxes and biometal fusion procedures. Finally, they should start programs to enhance their neural and nerve systems. When the biometal continued to fuse into the lines while the black liquid returned and fused into the lines of glowing energy, Naruto was completely asleep and unaware that lines of glowing energy were appearing all over his body as the nanomachines started to enhance him for the procedure. Naruto occasionally groaned, unaware that his biology was being changed to adapt it to the biometal and the combat suit itself. Had he been awake, he would have been horrified to see that his body was actually growing. The blonde, however, was being kept asleep as the nanomachines kept him asleep and used special chemicals to make him produce his own endorphins to dull his pain. So Naruto was unaware of what was happening to him at that very moment. The following day. What a night, man. I feel as though my training regimen has been a marathon. Although he didn't want to admit it because these were his favorite pajamas, Naruto noticed that his clothes seemed tighter and a little more form-fitting than usual. He got out of bed, yawned, and felt a little different at the moment. He moved and scratched the back of his head before making his way to his apartment's bathroom. He got a glass of water as soon as he walked into the bathroom, drank the refreshing beverage, opened his eyes, and took a closer look at himself in the mirror. People who lived a fair distance away from Naruto's apartment were going about their daily lives, minding their own business, when a scream ripped through the apartment, bringing everything to a sudden stop. In the restroom, what on earth became of me? As he examined his face in the mirror, Naruto thought, the baby fat of youth was gone. He looked harder, more angular, and well-defined. His skin had a light tanned complexion. The whisker marks were still there, but they were more wavy and appeared to be birthmarks as well. For some reason, he felt that his hair was thicker and more silky than rough straw at times. The blonde then noticed that his eyes were deep blue, which was how they usually were, but now they had a much deeper shade of blue, almost like blue sapphires. He appeared older and more mature, almost as if he had aged 3 or 4 years. He then noticed that he had also grown. He undressed, but to his surprise, his strength from yesterday had somehow increased, and his pajamas were easily ripped off of him. He was also shocked by his new facial features, but even more shocked to discover that he was much taller than before. He had been 5 feet 4 before, but now he was almost 6 feet 1, and boy, was he different. His body was no longer that of a 12-year-old adolescent. Instead, it was that of a highly trained 18-year-old athlete. There was no trace of fat anywhere, just pure muscle and strength. Nevertheless, Naruto could see that his body was much more akin to the build of a bodybuilder and athlete, the pinnacle of human body perfection, with a broad chest, strong shoulders, a flat but well-formed stomach, and more. When he turned his body in the mirror, he saw that his boxers were already too tight, and when he looked at his package, he blushed bright red as he realized that he was packing quite the set. What on earth became of me? Plus, he then noticed that his voice had changed, becoming deeper and more masculine like that of a much older man. Realizing that he had grown overnight, Naruto wondered what this might mean for him in the future. At that point, he made the decision to try and see what his trademark sexy no jutsu was like and whether it had changed as much as he had this morning. No jutsu, sexy. Then he glanced at the bathroom mirror, and suddenly a huge shock swept through his head, causing him to yell once more. Oh my god! In his sexy no jutsu form, he had a body that would definitely give men nosebleeds and more, because the female form he took was sensuously formed, with all the right curves and swells, and the sinfully perfect form that most men would have cheerfully committed murder to hold in their sleep. His height was the same as his own natural height, which made his sexy no jutsu form shocking to say the least, not in a bad way, but in a drop-dead sexy way. His sexy no jutsu form was definitely upgraded down to the last detail. Plus, there were muscles there as well, but they weren't bulky and were perfectly melded with the body, showing the full power of a woman in the breasts. Well, they were more than ample to the touch. The deep blonde hair on the sexy no jutsu was also long and very silky, definitely a long lush tail of gold silk. My god, what the devil happened to me? That black gunk did this to me, or did I eat something overnight? Naruto was back to his normal self after releasing the jutsu. He wasn't sure what the gunk had done to him, but he thought he might as well ask those he knew could give him some answers. However, he wasn't going to go there buck naked, so he left the restroom and went to a nearby closet. As a child, he had unintentionally purchased a lot of clothes that he didn't need since they were too big for him. He considered throwing them away or using them as rags, but now he was glad he didn't. He opened the closet and looked for the clothes he needed to wear, and happily he found them. He wore a deep black muscle shirt, a black and orange jacket that was somewhat similar to his old clothes, and a woven vest with pockets that featured the Konoha symbol behind it. The jacket and shirt were accompanied by a pair of pants that were the same color as the jacket, which was black and orange. Fortunately, the pants fit him well, and he found a pair of boxers that were appropriate for him. He also grabbed his forehead protector, tied it on his head, and hurriedly left his apartment, heading straight for the Hokage Tower. On a nearby bridge, Sakura started to pace back and forth as Sasuke stood there casually. She had been hoping that Kakashi would show up and tell them what the next mission was going to be, but she wasn't sure that there would be any missions right now with Naruto still in an unknown condition. She wondered what had happened because she remembered seeing that dark liquid enter and engulf his body right in front of her. He appeared to be fully recovered at the hospital and had eaten up a storm in the ramen stand where he was known to be easily found, but she also remembered seeing him throw that wild punch and leave a crater in the wall. The same could be said for Sasuke, who, despite his seemingly indifferent demeanor, was thinking deeply about what he had witnessed the blonde do back in the hospital. However, at the moment, he was clueless about what was happening. He had looked through his family's records in the old Uchiha estate but had found nothing about the substance that supposedly gave Naruto super strength. He wanted to know what it was, but he gave up the search when he found no leads, and although he didn't think Naruto would actually give him a direct response, he hoped the blonde had at least some idea what that stuff was. Kakashi-sensei, where are you? Sakura-chan. Sakura stopped her pacing and sighed when he recognized the voice. He's back on his feet, which is good, but when did Naruto's voice get deeper? Oh well, we might as well see what he wants. Don't yell, huh? Sakura gasped as she looked at the person approaching them, but it was not her teammate Naruto. Instead, it was a tall, teenage blonde hunk who was dressed in black and orange. He was well built, R-E-A-L-L-Y, well built, given how the clothes hugged his body and made him look even hotter. His hair was deep golden blonde, like gold silk, which was shocking to say the least. His eyes were a combination of deep ocean blue and sky blue, and in Sakura's imagination, he was hot. Sakura-chan, are you okay? You have a red face? Sakura's face was extremely red, so red, in fact, that she wouldn't have been shocked if it had looked like a tomato. At this moment she recovered and was able to speak again, but she couldn't help but gaze at the blonde beauty in front of her. I don't remember ever meeting him, but he's so handsome. But how does he know my name? Why does he sound and look vaguely familiar? He's wearing a Konoha forehead protector. However, Sakura's inner self had different ideas about how to characterize the blonde god in front of her. He's so hot. I wonder what size he is underneath or how strong those muscles are. Handsome doesn't cut it, girl. Stop talking. Sakura swallowed, then said something. Pardon me, but am I acquainted with you? With a look of disbelief, Naruto slapped his forehead and answered. Please don't say that, Sakura-chan. That's me, Naruto. After giving him a quick glance, Sakura started to recognize Naruto and felt as though he had deceived her. She approached him, made the hand signal, and spoke. Kai. Sakura's eyes widened as she opened them and prepared to beat Naruto to the ground for that nefarious trick because her teammate was still in that form. What is this type of henge? This is not henge, Sakura-chan, it's me, really. When Sakura finished her examination, she reached out and pinched Naruto's face. Realizing that this was indeed Naruto, she backed away and spoke in shock. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't help but notice Naruto's muscles and found herself staring at his well-defined posterior. Naruto. What the devil happened to you? I think I am like this because of the gunk from yesterday. I remember waking up and seeing myself in the mirror. Are you certain? I have no doubts about Sakura-chan. My old clothes no longer fit me, so I had to salvage some old ones. I have no idea what happened or what led me to this, but I know that gunk was the cause. Then Sasuke moved forward, his casual demeanor gone, his face filled with shock at what he saw. This cannot be Naruto in front of him. No one could have grown this way in a day. Hey Dobi, are you saying that you were harmed by the black gunk we saw? Stop referring to me as Dobi, Sasuke. Yes, unless the two of you can think of a better way to explain this. At that moment, a different voice entered the scene. Well, this is surprising. Is that you, Naruto? The Jonin wondered if there were any other negative effects of the gunk being inside Naruto, and this seemed to be one of them as he stood in front of Naruto, who was now only half a head taller than him. The three turned to see that it was none other than Kakashi himself, who was looking at Naruto with some surprise at the moment. He couldn't help but smirk at the sight of Naruto and spoke. Nice looks, Naruto. You're going to be winning ladies' hearts pretty easily at the moment. This isn't funny, Kakashi-sensei. Did the Hokage or you even know what that gunk was? After shaking his head, the Jonin answered, I'm afraid I can't help you right now, but rest assured that we'll do everything in our power to find the answers you need to know what that black gunk was. Naruto, the Hokage, has been searching for any information on it, but I'm afraid he hasn't found anything as of yet. There's not much that can be done until then. Naruto's shoulder slumped as he experienced depression. Darn it, oh well, I might as well make the most of this mess. According to the current situation, Naruto shouldn't be concerned, and that black gunk might be good for you. It hasn't killed you, for sure. Naruto had to acknowledge that the Jonin had a point when he looked at Kakashi. He also felt much better after seeing Sakura's heartfelt gaze upon seeing him, not to mention that he felt like he was at the peak of his abilities and could defeat anyone he faced right now. When he thought back to the incident with the hospital wall, he also felt even more powerful. You might be correct. This is really awesome. I'm so excited to get breakfast, man. See you. As soon as Naruto was out of sight, Kakashi turned to face his two teammates, the Genin, and he spoke in a serious tone while the others watched. We've got something to discuss, you two. The Jonin told Sakura and Sasuke about the medic Nin's findings and the Hokage's orders regarding the incident. It was shocking to learn that their teammate Naruto had cell-sized devices all over his body that gave him special powers and physical abilities, but they were completely taken aback when they learned about Naruto's chakra reserve. How much chakra does Naruto have? But Kakashi-sensei, that isn't possible. I have to agree with Sakura. Kakashi, there's no way anyone living could have that much chakra in them and still be alive. That much power would kill them. Even though he didn't express it, the Jonin knew that their reactions were expected. He acknowledged that learning about Naruto's chakra level shocked him as well, but he couldn't hide the truth either. The evidence was in front of them, and denying it wouldn't alter the facts. It's true, but Naruto's devices have somehow enhanced his chakra to extremely powerful levels and condensed pockets of it. Naruto is alive and does currently possess that level of chakra, despite the fact that it may seem impossible. When the medic Nin scanned the blood sample that was drawn from Naruto yesterday morning, they weren't playing around, and I didn't want to believe it either. Sakura and Sasuke were shocked, but they were powerless to stop Kakashi from bidding them farewell because he had some more business to discuss with the Hokage. After the Jonin left, Sakura turned and left because he had a lot on his mind right now. Sakura was left alone, so she took a quick stroll and thought about what she had just learned and seen. As Tuchi and Ayame arrived at the Ichiraku ramen stand, Naruto sat down. The moment Ayame saw Naruto, she blushed bright red and spoke in a very embarrassed tone. Hello, sir, welcome to the Ichiraku ramen stand. Tell me about your plans for the day. Naruto answered with a smile, just my usual, Ayame-san. Although she had never met him before, Ayame found it odd that he seemed somewhat familiar to her. She gasped and questioned why this attractive young man spoke to her as though he knew her. Then Tuchi said something. Pardon me, sir, but I don't remember ever seeing you here, and I know every single person who visits our booth. Who are you exactly? Nice to meet you, old man. It's me, Naruto. Surprised, Tucci and Ayame leaned forward to take a closer look at Naruto. It was then that they recognized the well-built, attractive, blonde ninja. Tucci grinned broadly and spoke. Look at yourself, Naruto-kun. My goodness, I'll get your favorite orders now because you've grown. Ayame's father prepared the customary meal for their favorite client, and Ayame couldn't help but blush when she saw how attractive Naruto was. At the moment she wasn't alone, though, as a number of passing female villagers, both young and old, noticed the attractive blonde ninja and started staring shamelessly at him as Naruto thanked Tucci for the ramen and started to eat his fill. After a short while, Ayame gave a whoop of joy as he finished the bowls of ramen that Tucci had handed him. Naruto left the area as soon as he finished his breakfast, saying goodbye to Ayame and Tucci. Ayame blushed when her father saw that, and he smiled and spoke to her in a sly manner. I won't mind you two doing the mattress dance, but I advise you two to exercise caution because this isn't the right time to start a family. You like Naruto-kun, don't you? He's definitely grown up. Father, in a different area of Konoha. Sakura was concerned when she saw Konohamaru being held by a tough-looking boy in black, with a strange wrapped package on his back and decorative paint on his face. The young Hokage grandson had been playing with his friends Moegi and Udon when he had encountered the stranger. The stranger glared at Konohamaru, who was having trouble holding on to him. Let me go, you darn jerk. Please release him, he's only a kid. Sorry, no can do. This brat hit me and now I am going to even the score. Sakura was unsure of what to do at the moment. She had been strolling and considering how she would behave around Naruto following his abrupt physical growth spurt when she noticed the incident. Upon recognizing Konohamaru, she made the snap decision to go over there, stop the potential danger, and hopefully identify the newcomers. Another was a female ninja who carried a huge metal object that looked like some kind of case. She was wearing a completely different outfit than her companion, with her hair in 4 short ponytails, a clip-on dress, and a forehead protector that hung like a necklace around her neck. She also appeared to be upset about her companion's behavior. She's got a point. There's no need to be picking on a kid at this point in time. Not this time, this will be quick. Sakura didn't know what to do, but she could tell that the two were proficient genin, and that's when she recognized their symbols. They were ninja from Suna, a village in the Land of Wind, who were recently Konoha's allies. What the heck is going on here? Sakura turned and saw that Sasuke was holding something like a pebble. Sasuke-kun. We need help, Konohamaru is going to get hurt. After giving a nod, Sasuke turned to talk to the stranger. Let the young one go. No. The blonde female ninja grinned as she turned to face Sasuke. The local cutie has arrived. Before things could get any worse and Sasuke could move, everyone noticed a quick blur of movement. Then, someone else was close to the stranger, and the ninja who was holding Konohamaru yelled in agony. Visible to everyone nearby, someone then grabbed the arm that was holding Konohamaru. The stranger turned and saw the hand that was holding his own in a very tight vice that was about to break his bones. Naruto gave him a stern look. The blonde genin had been running when he realized something was wrong, but he didn't care because he increased the pressure on his grip. Let go of Konohamaru before I crush your arm. The stranger gritted his teeth and glared at Naruto, which made him tighten his hold a little. However, that was enough to get the stranger to let go of Konohamaru, who landed on the ground without any fanfare but turned and shouted in recognition. Boss. Naruto spoke to his friend and opponent for the position of Hokage while turning to smile at Konohamaru. You all right? Just fine, boss. Glad you made it, and damn, you look great. The blonde companion turned and gasped with a fierce blush when she looked at the blonde ninja who had grasped her companion's arm. So Moegi wasn't the only one who had hearts in her eyes as she gazed at Naruto. Wow, what a hot blonde guy. After letting the individual go, Naruto let Konohamaru stand up and approach his friends before turning to face the stranger. The blonde kunoichi couldn't help but stare at Naruto with awe and an even fiercer blush as he turned slightly and carelessly swiped his hand at a large tree nearby. The impact of his hand on the tree made a loud roar, and there was a huge half-hole that was made when Naruto's hand struck the tree hard. The sight was enough to make the strangely dressed young man back away as he held his still aching hand. Wow, what strength that blonde beauty possesses. You've got some guts manhandling my friend Konohamaru like that. After cracking his knuckles, Naruto shifted his head to the sides to relax his neck, glared at the stranger, and resumed his conversation. So before I beat the holy hell out of you, I want to know the name I have to give the medic nins when they retrieve your battered carcass. As he stepped back and prepared to fight, the stranger glared and responded, reaching behind him and grabbing the bundle. I'm not going to give my name to you, punk. I am going to beat the hell out of you. With a startled expression, the blonde female ninja spoke rapidly to her partner. Have you lost your mind? You're using Karasu here of all places? Unbeknownst to Naruto, the biocomputer was already assessing the individual in front of him and calculating the degree of threat he posed to its master as the PD system activated and started scanning the person before its host or user. Threat detected. Scanning. The level of threat was identified as mid-class, less than significant. Level 1 weapon systems were chosen. A default non-lethal payload was chosen. Low-level defensive options were chosen, etc. But before things could get interesting, a different voice suddenly appeared. Konkaru, what on earth are you doing in Konoha? The oddly dressed ninja gulped as soon as he heard the voice, losing his once ferocious demeanor when he turned and saw someone close to the tree, upside down. Everyone else turned to look at the newcomer, who was a red-haired boy wearing a variety of dark and light brown outfits. He had a strange mark on his head and a gourd of some kind on his back that was made of sand. As the Persona Drive system scanned the newcomer, Naruto turned to face them. A potential threat has been detected. It may be necessary to activate all bio-armor functions and load custom weapons from combat persona due to the potential threat level to the host, which was scanned as being above considerable. The newcomer glared at Konkaru, who seemed apprehensive and afraid of the newcomer to the area. Naruto was left wondering who the newcomer was, and he had the same suspicions about Sakura, Sasuke, Moegi, Udon, and Konohamaru. After that, the stranger addressed Konkaru. I asked you a question, Konkaru. Answer me. Sorry about that, Gaara. It was this kid's fault. The brat ran into me and then, well, you can see the results. So I see, but you realize that you're making a laughingstock of yourself and the village by picking on the kid? Well, I was. Never mind. I don't want to hear it at all. Be lucky that we're supposed to be meeting Baki-sensei later and therefore time is important to us at the moment. If that wasn't the case, I'd kill you right now. Don't let this happen again. Konkaru nodded and swallowed. I got it. I went out of line, Gaara. Despite his disapproval of what he sensed from this Gaara child, Naruto chose to calm down as Gaara spoke to him and the others again. I'm sorry for the trouble my brother might have caused. After Naruto had given them a look, Gaara turned to face his friends and began to speak in a serious tone. Come on, you two, we've wasted enough time here. Baki-sensei might already be looking for us. Nevertheless, Sakura spoke rapidly and demanded answers from the three because she was aware that even though the Land of Fire and the Land of Wind were allies, as were their villages, they were not permitted to be in the village unless they had a valid reason. Hold it, I know you are ninja from the village of Suna in the Land of Wind. While it is true that you are allies of Konoha in a treaty, you three are not allowed here unless you have a special reason. So why are you three here? The blonde ninja answered back. Have you really no clue? We're here to take part in the yearly Chunin exams that Konoha is hosting today, or have you not been paying attention? Chunin exams? The Chunin exams were quickly explained by Konohamaru, and Naruto and Sasuke were immediately intrigued. It seems that the Chunin exams were used to identify the most viable genin to become Chunin, and that this was one way to become viable for Jonin rank, and eventually Hokage Naruto became very interested in this, and he turned to speak to the three genin from Suna. Hold on here, you haven't exactly said your names just yet. The blonde ninja turned and gave Naruto a perceptive yet cunning glance, which caused Naruto to smile slightly but sufficiently for the blonde female ninja to smile back. You mean me? If you don't mind, of course. After all, ladies first, right? With a smile, the female ninja answered. You're a rather interesting guy, and for calling me a lady in a nice way too. My name is Tamari. Tamari, nice name. So how long do you plan on being here in Konoha for the Chunin exams? There's some really good ramen and more here in Konoha. At that, Tamari grinned and answered. Why? Asking me out on a date or something? Konkaru stepped forward, glared at Naruto, and spoke in a very serious tone before Naruto could respond. Hey! Stay the hell away from my sister or I'm going to make sure you are dead meat. Tamari spoke gravely while glaring at her middle sibling. Konkaru. Calm down. Naruto spoke earnestly and grinned. That's all right, maybe some other time, and I take it that the one with the sand gourd is your brother. As Tamari and Konkaru turned, they saw Gaara turn and speak to Naruto in a level voice as he watched the blonde ninja. He sensed that something was different about this one. He had fought many battles before and was currently not facing any formidable foes, but this one. He's interesting. He moved quickly and almost broke Konkaru's arm. That's correct. My name is Gaara of the Desert Sand and Konkaru and Tamari are my siblings, and who are you? Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha. There was a brief period of silence as the two gazed at each other before Gaara broke into a small smile. All forward to fighting you, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto smiled and answered. Likewise, Gaara. Likewise, Sasuke. Sakura, and Naruto all relaxed as soon as they left the area. They were then informed that the Chunin exams would begin, and Sasuke remarkably agreed with Naruto that this was a fantastic opportunity to hone their skills and compete against the other village ninja teams that would undoubtedly be participating in the Chunin exams. Sasuke thought this would be an excellent opportunity to put his Sharingan to the test. While the two men on her team were more than eager, Sakura was the only one who was a little apprehensive about the entire situation, which caused her to reconsider her position. Sakura turned and headed for her own house as Sasuke left to finish some work at his family's house, but Naruto stops her and tells her that he thinks she has a lot to offer the team and that she should decide whether or not to join them for the Chunin exams. He thinks that even though she is not as talented as Sasuke, she could still contribute significantly to the team. After Naruto departs, Konohamaru and his companions accompany him, giving Sakura time to consider what he said. Unaware that 3 genin were observing them, one of them wore full-face bandages and had an odd hunchback-like appearance. The other wore bracers and a mask-style forehead protector, and the third was a girl wearing a more formal forehead protector. What do you think, Dosu? Nothing, Zaku, just weaklings, but that desert brat, the blonde and that Uchiha kid, we have to wary of the 3 of them. Come on, we have to move on with what we need to do. The band dispersed and disappeared, but the band's female member turned to see Naruto chatting with Konohamaru and his friends. She couldn't help but lick her lips in lustful delight at the sight of the blonde. Unbeknownst to the sound genin, there was another spectator, and it was none other than Kakashi himself, who had witnessed the entire brief conflict between Naruto and the Sand siblings and was dissatisfied with the outcome. He then considered what would transpire when he met with his genin team the following day. And he reflected on what had transpired. A flashback. Kakashi was aware that Iruka would not approve of his suggestion the day before, but he had to admit that the Chunin surprised him by how upset he was about the idea of Naruto and the others being included in the Chunin exams, along with a number of other academy graduates. It's not that Iruka did anything embarrassing, but he was shouting and furious as well. Kakashi also knew that Iruka had put his life in danger to protect Naruto. When Mizuki attempted to kill the blonde ninja, he was able to persuade Iruka that both Sakura and Sasuke would be prepared, and that with the new discovery, Naruto would be more than a capable handful for the other participants. Additionally, the fact that Naruto saw Iruka as a father figure made Iruka more protective of him, and it would be a good way to determine exactly what kind of advantages the devices gave Naruto. The idea of using Naruto as a test subject did not sit well with Iruka, but Kakashi also clarified that Naruto wanted challenges, and that challenges that tested the ninja's skills and abilities were the true test of how a ninja would know his or her abilities and limits, and how to surpass them. As much as Kakashi hated to admit it, putting Naruto in some danger will help him develop as a ninja. Keeping Naruto safe would not allow him to grow. Pain, in moderation, would motivate Naruto to continue. Sarutobi could understand Kakashi's reasoning, but he cautioned Kakashi not to go too far. After reminding the Jonin of the danger of the Kyuubi becoming loose, it was only by pure luck that Naruto was able to suppress the Kyuubi's chakra when he realized that the masked ninja youth who helped Zabuza was actually the same young man he befriended. Iruka was not happy, but he eventually gave in to Kakashi and the Hokage. While only a small portion of the Kyuubi's chakra was loosened in Wave Country, there was a chance that Naruto would be pushed too hard and, in some way, the Kyuubi would come loose, posing a threat to everyone in the Chunin exams, including his teammates. It was impossible to predict what might happen if Naruto's emotions helped loosen the seal too much and the Kyuubi took control. The situation was extremely delicate because of the device's presence in Naruto's body cells as well as the near-limitless supply of normal chakra and enhanced abilities they had given him. The flashback is over. Yes, this is dangerous, but I am confident that they will succeed. Even though Sasuke and Naruto are fiercely hostile toward one another, they worked well together to defeat Haku and Zabuza, and Sakura kept them grounded and away from each other's throats. As the day went on, Kakashi sighed and turned to face the gates, realizing that the Chunin exams were about to begin. He could already see guests and dignitaries arriving, along with other genin teams. With a sigh, the Jonin hurried to the Hokage Tower. Although he, Iruka, and Sarutobi had previously decided to let Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura take the Chunin exams, it still needed to be done formally for the benefit of his team as well as the other Jonin. The following day, Naruto woke up with a lot of energy and went to his apartment's refrigerator to start the day with an extra helping of milk, dried fish and meat that he could eat quickly, and instant ramen. His apartment was rather simple and uninteresting to him now that he was a genin. He had some money, but not enough to buy all the things most people had, and he wished he had more to maintain his apartment. However, this Chunin exam was the key to his dreams of becoming Hokage and finally demonstrating to the village that he was more than the Kyuubi container they believed him to be. Ah, don't worry about that right now, it's time to eat. The blonde swiftly finished his breakfast and was now completely clothed in his new attire. He had respectfully put his old clothing aside, and although many people found it to be unattractive and outdated, he didn't. He received them as personal gifts from a good-hearted village elder who passed away when he was still a young boy. The elderly man was one of the few people who didn't mistreat him or call him derogatory names, but instead saw him as a grumpy but good-hearted scamp and gave him his clothes for free, including the ones he currently wears. When he was finished, he left without realizing that in his body. Even the blonde's breathing had been perfected, with the nanomachines increasing his lung capacity and improving the storage and use of oxygen in his body, making his body work 3 to 4 times its normal capacity. The blonde was not yet fully aware of this, but the nanomachines were already hard at work breaking down the food and milk he had taken for breakfast, processing them quickly in his stomach, and transporting the nutrients effectively and quickly. He saw Sakura and Sasuke as soon as he arrived at the meeting spot. The blonde greeted Sakura, and she returned the greeting. Then, observing that Sasuke appeared to be a little tired, Naruto responded. "Hey Sasuke, you look kind of tired. Did you do some late-night training?" Sasuke gave Naruto a casual, easygoing, and unconcerned glance. "What makes you say that, Dobi? Because you've got some faint eye bags underneath. You should consider cutting down on the late-night stuff. No sense tiring yourself to exhaustion. And I think you need to seriously consider a wardrobe change. You smell of sweat and smoke. Have you been using smoke bombs again? Because I swear I can smell the powder residue on your clothes. Even the smell is on your hair, so you need to change the shampoo you're using. Because that one you've got isn't doing a good job at the moment of hiding the smoke smell. Your hair smells like sandalwood and gunpowder. Not very flattering, you know." Naruto was correct. He had been training late into the night and using smoke bombs, but he had also taken a bath and used the sandalwood-scented shampoo that he had used frequently as a child. Sasuke gave Naruto a very perplexed and somewhat shocked look. However, how could Naruto have known all of that simply by scent? "Are you pulling my leg, Dobi? Hey, I smell what I smell. Don't blame me if you smell of sweat, smoke, and sandalwood." When Sakura heard all of this, she was taken aback because she was unaware that Sasuke was using shampoo with a sandalwood scent. The two ninja and Naruto himself were unaware that the nanomachines had improved most of Naruto's senses, including his sense of smell, which allowed him to surpass even a dog's sense of smell and hearing. His eyesight had also changed slightly to accommodate the passive scanning capabilities provided by the biocomputer, which is why his eyeshade had become more colorful. Well now, that was rather informative. When the three of them turned, Kakashi was approaching them with his book in his hands. As usual, he greeted them with his trademark smile, stopped, set the book aside, and started talking. "I have some good news for you three. Now normally there would be a need for you three to take in more missions to gain the needed experience and skills to be candidates, but I have decided to allow you three to take applications into the Chunin exams." Sakura merely gave a fleeting, contemplative glance before smiling as she spoke, while Naruto was beaming broadly and Sasuke was smiling too. The rather awkward moment between the two was forgotten when they learned that they would be getting their chance to participate in the Chunin exams. "So, when will we be taking the tests? Sakura, are you eager to participate in the exams as well?" "Okay. So here are the forms for the Chunin exams. They will begin in a few days, so you have time to consider your options. Here is some crucial information. The Chunin exams are held twice a year, so if you feel unprepared for the current one, you can choose to take the next one. However, you will need to put in even more effort to demonstrate that you are capable of passing the Chunin exams. You will all gather at the academy for the Chunin exams. After you have made up your minds, it will begin in room 301, so arrive early." Kakashi then gave his team's genin the application forms to sign. He was confident that Naruto and Sasuke would sign up for this crucial opportunity to demonstrate their abilities to both others and to each other. But Sakura, despite her brave exterior at the time, was a concern. The Jonin knew that her ability to control her chakras, her intelligence, her knowledge, and her analytical skills would be beneficial to both Naruto and Sasuke. "All right then, I'll be there in the academy waiting for you, and don't be late." Naruto smiled and answered, "Kakashi-sensei, don't worry, we'll be there. For once I agree with the loud mouth. I won't miss this chance for the world. Better that we face the competition in one place instead of looking for them." With a slight sigh, Kakashi said goodbye to his team and had to decide whether they would make it. He was sure of the two boys, but Sakura, well, he would have to wait and see. After a few days, as he waited for this team to arrive, Naruto grinned a little because he wanted to be there early and prepared for anything at this time. Sure enough, Sasuke showed up, and Naruto chose not to start the day by arguing with him about his bathing habits because he didn't smell particularly strange about his teammate, but he was curious about Sakura's whereabouts because he had half expected her to be there. "Where is Sakura-chan?" "Sasuke. I have no idea, I thought she was already here." The pink-haired Kunoichi sighed and relaxed a little as she spoke. and Sakura herself appeared to be in a rather quick hurry regardless of the outcome. She decided to be with her team and take the Chunin exams. Sorry about the delay, ran into some important chores for my folks. I see. Are you prepared to go on? Naruto and Sasuke both nodded in response to the question. The three of them then entered the academy, where they saw that many genin were preparing for the Chunin exams. However, on their way to the second floor, they noticed a pair of genin pushing away a number of other genin, which they found strange. They later learned that these two were attempting to persuade the others to reconsider and leave the Chunin exams. Although Naruto was not yet aware of it, the biocomputer started scanning the two genin and soon realized that they were creating an illusion. Naruto was able to see through it because of the improved vision that the nanomachines had given him, and he was shocked to discover that the room number was incorrect and that, despite the fact that they were inside a group of children, those two were adults wearing uniforms and forehead protectors when they were able to knock down. Guys, those characters aren't genin, that's the wrong room number, and we're on the wrong floor. Sakura and Sasuke were taken aback until Sakura made the decision to look around and soon saw that Naruto was correct. Naruto's right, this is the wrong floor, and I get the feeling that this must a genjutsu, pretty strong one too. I'd say that those two might be Chunin exam proctors, either Chunin themselves or low Jonin level. Nicely done guys, I guess that black gunk's given you the ability to screen out genjutsu illusions. Dobi. Instead of becoming upset, Naruto chose to smirk in response. Are you envious of my anti-genjutsu vision, Sasuke? Sasuke scowled and had to confess that he was a little envious because he had not noticed the genjutsu until Naruto blew it open and Sakura clarified it. However, he then smiled a little more and responded. HMPH, not at the moment, let's go see just how things will play out. As the disguised Chunin attacked Sasuke, the supposedly injured genin who had been knocked down earlier moved quickly and intercepted both Sasuke and the disguised Chunin, surprising everyone, including Naruto. The biocomputer swiftly scanned the genin and then the genin's apparent companions, who appeared and seemed unhappy with his actions. Apparently, they were trying to keep a fairly low profile. Without a doubt, top scout the competition. Naruto stayed out of the spotlight for the time being as the biocomputer swiftly evaluated all three subjects. The genin with the green jumpsuit was named Rock Lee, the one with the long hair, bandages, coat, and shorts was Neji Hyuga, and the female was Tenten. The introductions came after the scans were finished. Subject: Rock Lee, completed scan and evaluation. Excellent hand-to-hand combat fighter with a 3rd degree junior master CQC rank, high levels of dexterity and agility, significant strength, scans showing weights on legs that reduce full speed and power, potential training aids, etc. Potential threat level to host. High threat level may require the activation of armor, while level 2 weapons and level 2 defensive systems may be optional. Low bioenergy levels but high potential for genetic enhancement. Well, subject: Neji Hyuga, completed scan and evaluation. Excellent hand-to-hand combat skills. CQC rank of 1st degree master, fighting style that resembles pressure point assassin attacks, unknown genetic traits, decent speed and agility. There is a significant risk to the host. The pattern is the same. Subject: Tenten, completed scan and evaluation. Significant proficiency with close combat weapon systems, exceptional hand-eye coordination and extreme accuracy when throwing weapons, a potential elite marksman rank skill level, poor hand-to-hand combat skills when deprived of weapons, dependability on weapon arsenals. Potentially serious threat to the host. Authorized armor system activation. Level 2 defensive system settings will be the default defensive system settings. As Naruto and his group departed, Neji observed them as they proceeded to find the actual room where they would actually take the exams. The last member of the Uchiha clan, the one with the attitude, will undoubtedly be a formidable opponent. The female companion appears to be of average ability and not particularly dangerous, but the other one is different. He's concealing something. Tenten had to confess that he thought Sasuke was attractive, but when she turned to face Naruto, she was taken aback by the tall, blonde ninja like Neji. She thought something strange about the young ninja, but she wasn't sure yet what was different about the blonde. I must say, though, that he's really gorgeous. Then, knowing that Lee would follow through on his promise, Neji moved on, leaving Tenten to wonder what exactly Lee was trying to prove. Lee then made the decision to take a brief break and told his team to go ahead and he would catch up with them later. In the corridor as Lee prepared, Naruto sighed and shrugged his shoulders. He wasn't sure why, but he knew that Sasuke was beyond his capabilities. There was something about Lee that wasn't immediately apparent, and the blonde ninja could tell that he wasn't your typical looking ninja based on the way he moved when he lashed out with both hands to stop Sasuke and one of those disguised Chunin. After the genin followed them, they were going to head out to find the correct room when Lee jumped down and challenged Sasuke to a fight while making the moves on Sakura. Naruto was taken aback and angry that he wasn't going to fight the genin, but he chose to watch as Sasuke prepared to fight him. However, he chose to remind them of something. I hate to break up this whole thing, but you two do realize that if we don't hurry up and find room 301 we could very well be barred from taking the Chunin exams. Naruto had a point, and Sakura, who had recovered from Lee's antics and said her piece, was aware that the longer they stayed here, the greater the likelihood that they would be disqualified from the Chunin exams. Naruto is right, Sasuke-kun. We don't have time for this. If we don't make it soon, we'll be disqualified. Don't worry, this will be over quickly, but Naruto didn't believe that. Sasuke, we don't have time for this. Besides, Lee is no ordinary fighter despite the looks. Butt out, Naruto. This guy challenged me, and I'm going to show him that the Uchiha aren't the type of people you challenge just for kicks. Naruto sighed and shook his head. He had no idea why, but he knew that this would not go well. All right, Sasuke, suit yourself, but don't blame me if bushy brows beats the tar out of you. I might not know why, but I've got a good feeling he's more deadly than he looks. You should consider his words, Sasuke-kun. I might not show it, but I am one of the top genin graduates a year before you, so do not take me lightly. I see. Well, prove it to me. All right, Sasuke Uchiha, defend yourself. As Sasuke and Lee engaged in combat, Sakura reflected on her past experiences witnessing Lee thwart Sasuke's attack and the disguised Chunin, and she started to worry that perhaps Naruto was correct about Lee. She then turned to Naruto and spoke. Are you certain, Naruto, that Lee is far more powerful than he appears? Naruto responded with a nod. I'm not sure myself, since this Lee was able to fool even me at first, but I can be sure that this time he's being serious. I got a feeling that this is going to be one serious fight for Sasuke. As it turned out, Naruto was correct. Sasuke's attempts to attack and defend himself against Rock Lee were ineffective because the green jumpsuit wearing genin was proving to be a formidable opponent. Despite the fact that the two were flinging everything at each other, Lee was winning. The genin responded during a pause in the battle that he was aware of the Sharingan's capabilities and that it could read an opponent's movements and comprehend jutsus like ninjutsu and genjutsu. However, he pointed out that he only used taijutsu and that his choice of fighting style revealed nothing, so he had little reason to be afraid of the Sharingan. He also stated truthfully that even though Sasuke could predict his moves, he was too slow to physically match him, meaning that Sasuke's Sharingan was useless against his extreme taijutsu. When Sakura witnessed Lee abuse Sasuke, he could see that Naruto's judgment and sense that Lee was no fool were accurately accurate. Naruto was correct. Lee is more complex than he appears. After he managed to get Sasuke airborne, Naruto realized that Lee was going to launch a powerful attack and was ready to intervene, but to his surprise, a talking turtle appeared. Lee cancelled the attack and was now in front of the turtle, who started berating him like a sensei or teacher. Wow, this is brand new. As Sakura tried to check on him after preventing him from hitting the ground and suffering more injuries, Sasuke was furious at how easily Lee had defeated him. He glared at Lee and felt even more ashamed of what had happened. How did I let that freak go? They then met another Jonin, Guy, who was reportedly Lee's idol and team's Jonin sensei. After witnessing an intriguing display of oddness from the two and learning that Guy and Kakashi were rivals, Guy said goodbye to them and took note of Naruto and Sasuke because he thought both of them were great. The Jonin sensei of Neji, Tenten, and Lee recalled Kakashi's statement that his team was the best he had ever seen and more than prepared for the exams, and he was now beginning to agree with his rival's assessment. Let's check to see if Kakashi is correct. Then Rock Lee addressed Sasuke. Hey Sasuke, I have to confess that I was not totally honest with you. There is truth to what I had said before, that I wanted to test my skills, but you are not the one I truly wanted to test my skills against. I lied to you in the fight as well. I said before that I am one of the top genin in Konoha, but there is in truth another, and he is on my team. But since Naruto only knew one member of Lee's team, he already knew exactly who Lee was referring to. I assume he's talking about that Hyuga guy. I came here to finally defeat him. You were merely practice, but now you are a target. The next time you and I meet, it will be in a fight to the finish and I will crush you. You have been warned. With that, Lee jumped up and flipped to the balcony. Sakura turned and was very concerned about Sasuke, while Sasuke raged at his loss at the hands of Rock Lee and Sakura, and Naruto watched Sasuke turned away and clenched his teeth in grip at the memory and what Lee had told him. Sasuke-kun, after giving this teammate a quick glance, Naruto responded. I told you not to take him lightly, now look what happened. Naruto. This isn't the right time. Sasuke glared as he turned to face Naruto. Stop talking. Naruto, I'll beat the living daylights out of him the next time I see him wearing that green jumpsuit. Unconvinced, Naruto responded, who's speaking, huh? You didn't fight Lee in the most elegant manner I've ever seen you, and if you ever run into him again, you'll probably get your ass kicked again. Why you too, stop it. Sakura attempted to keep the peace by stepping between the two and speaking as Naruto looked at Sasuke with his arms folded across his chest. Sasuke glared and appeared prepared for a fight. Here, we're on the same team. Put an end to this immediately. Then Naruto answered, under those bandages, did you not notice Lee's hand bruises? When Sasuke remembered seeing Lee rewrapping his bandages, he noticed the genin's hands were bruised and injured. Naruto knew that Sasuke had noticed and responded. I can bet Lee's been training until he drops in exhaustion and gets right back up to do it all over again. He trains much harder than you, plus he knows that the Sharingan isn't perfect. Trust me, Sasuke. Lee was taking it easy on you when you fought. Had he been serious, you've got far worse than when that turtle stopped him. After realizing that Naruto was correct about Lee, Sasuke turned to face the ground, and Naruto responded. Think about it. If we battle weak guys and ladies all the way to the end of the Chunin exams, it won't be a true test. We're not dealing with lower-level genin here. Sasuke, we're dealing with the best that every hidden village has to offer, including our own here. Lee's just one of the reasons this Chunin exams are worth it. After giving it some thought, Sasuke saw the truth in Naruto's statement and grinned, which helped to diffuse the tension between them in the room. I hate to say it, Dobi, but you're right, this won't be a real challenge if we fought weak people all the way to the end. This Chunin exams is going to be a real test. After that, the three headed to the floor where the Chunin exams were being conducted. The actual third floor. After reaching the actual third floor, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were already en route to the main room when they noticed their Jonin sensei leaning on the door in front of them. Knowing that everything depended on them all working together, Kakashi grinned slightly to himself as he saw his genin team and examined them. He also expressed approval of Sakura's presence and Naruto's new appearance. Well, I'm happy that all three of you are here, namely you most of all, Sakura, for your sake and that of both Naruto and Sasuke. What does that Kakashi-sensei mean, huh? Sakura inquired because she was perplexed by what Kakashi had just said to her and had decided to support her teammates alone, which caught Sasuke and Naruto's attention as they both pondered what was going on. Now you three can formally be allowed to participate in the Chunin exams. You say that, Kakashi-sensei, but why? Because in truth, Sakura, only genin teams of 3 can apply to take the Chunin exams, can be allowed to participate in the Chunin exams. That's a formal rule that is very much enforced, and no one genin is allowed to take the Chunin exams without a team with them. But sensei, you said that joining the Chunin exams was a personal, individual decision. That is correct, I did say that. So, Kakashi-sensei, was what you said false? It was more of a test than a true Sakura. You see, taking the Chunin exams is a personal choice, but it can also have an impact on your teammates' lives, much like a single choice can decide the outcome of a mission in your teammates' lives. I didn't want Sasuke, Naruto, or you to feel pressured to join them, so I kept that information from you. However, I also didn't want you to feel pressured to join because of your feelings toward Naruto or Sasuke. I wanted you to freely choose whether or not you wanted to take the Chunin exams. I see, so you mean that if Sasuke-kun and Naruto-kun came but I didn't join them, then they would. I would not have allowed them to enter this room and take the Chunin exams. If you had not arrived with them of your free will, then it would have been the end of the road for all three of you, but that is now a moot point. After that, Kakashi spoke with pride, and his genin team sensed it and became upbeat as well. You're all here for the right reasons, Sakura. Sakura smiled and blushed a little at their Jonin mentor's respect and pride for her. Naruto. Naruto smiled broadly, eagerly, and Sasuke. Sasuke grinned too, eager to put himself to the test in the upcoming battles. Then Kakashi showed his pride by grinning at the three of them. I couldn't have asked for a better team to be under my leadership, and I'm really proud of you all. I wish you luck and success. As Sasuke and Sakura reached for the doors and opened them first, Kakashi moved aside, and Naruto grinned in response to his Jonin sensei. You can trust that we won't let you down, sensei. Kakashi let out a sigh as the three of them entered and gazed out the windows, which offered a panoramic view of Konoha. I have a hunch that things are going to get really hairy soon, and I'm curious to see how Naruto's classmates will respond to the changes he's gone through. I'm positive that this year's Chunin exams will be extremely interesting. As soon as they walked into the room, Sakura couldn't help but feel a little anxious about the number of people there and the glares they were receiving. Sasuke turned to face each person, and he gave them a defiant look, while Naruto watched fearlessly, growing increasingly irritated by the looks. At that moment, they noticed a number of additional arrivals coming their way, and Naruto grinned a little because he immediately recognized them. The blonde woman with the long hair was Ino Yamanaka, a kunoichi from the Yamanaka clan who reportedly had the ability to switch her mind with her enemy, enabling her to temporarily control the enemy despite being noisy and a little annoying. He acknowledged that Ino took good care of herself and was best friends with her two friends, in addition to being easy on the eyes. One such friend was Shikamaru Nara, one of the most slothful men in the academy who, despite his extreme laziness, managed to graduate with some excellent grades. Naruto was aware that Shikamaru was much more than he appeared to be, but he still enjoyed teasing the sloth occasionally and had to acknowledge that, in spite of his lackadaisical demeanor, Shikamaru had courage. Choji was also present, as usual, stuffing his mouth full of chips. The big genin was easily identified not only by his size but also by the fact that he was constantly eating. Naruto could not recall ever seeing Choji not eat at the time. Choji took offense at being called fat because, as soon as he heard it, the normally calm and somewhat dense Choji turned into a destructive force, and even he would never call Choji fat. He recognized the other three people coming their way with ease. The first was none other than Kiba Inuzuka and his pet, Akamaru. The two were always together, which made sense because Kiba and Akamaru were close and Kiba was an Inuzuka. He didn't particularly like Kiba because he was too loud-mouthed, even more so than him in some ways, but that wasn't a big deal right now. The other boy was Shino Aburame. He had little knowledge of Shino and his clan. He was currently a mystery as a blonde ninja. However, he was not a major nuisance because he was always the somewhat eerie and silent type. Even during the academy days, Naruto had little to no idea of the kind of person Shino was at the moment. The other, however, was none other than Hyuga Hinata, a timid and shy wallflower of a girl he had known back in the academy. She was always shy and seemed to blush and turn away whenever he looked in her direction. It wasn't as unsettling as when he looked at Shino, but it was strange in a way. Hinata wasn't particularly attractive. Her silver irises were a little strange, but then again, she was a Hyuga, so her eyes were normal, and she could see him just fine. The only thing that intrigued Naruto was that she was the only girl he knew who showed no interest in Sasuke, and despite himself, he wondered who she had her eyes on if not his teammate. It was Ino who spoke first. "Hey, you made it, Sasuke-kun. I started to wonder when you would show up, and whoa, who's that guy with you?" Kiba wondered about that too as she glanced at Naruto. "Who is this guy? I don't remember seeing him at graduation, for sure." "Well, isn't Naruto or something your other teammate was supposed to be? Did he get replaced?" Shikamaru inquired, unsure of the whereabouts of the gregarious blonde. Although she wouldn't say it aloud right now, Ino had to concede that the tall blonde in front of her was attractive. Even more so than Sasuke in some ways. However, there was something strangely familiar about this hottie, even though she had never met him before and could not identify the marks on his face. The Hyuga heiress had a long-standing fondness for the blonde since she first met him, and she hoped to one day tell him about it. Hinata also mentioned that she couldn't help but find the tall teen in front of her very handsome, but she only cared for Naruto and preferred to see her crush. After a brief chuckle, Naruto answered the query. "Have you forgotten, Shikamaru, or am I still here?" Naruto chose to remind them after the others glanced at him and were still not persuaded. "Come on, you guys. Who do you think is always late for class, loves ramen, wears orange, makes fun of Iruka-sensei, and frequently plays practical jokes at school?" After giving Naruto a closer look, the other genin recognized him, but they were a little taken aback. Choji was about to eat another chip when he realized that the person was actually Naruto in full size, while Kiba was staring at him in shock. Shikamaru was watching in astonishment, and Sino was just staring. Since they were unaware that the blonde hottie in front of them was actually Naruto, Ino and Hinata were the ones most impacted. After that, Ino approached Naruto and used the same release jutsu that Sakura had used. Thinking it was Henge to their surprise, the tall blonde genin was still there, telling them that this was not Henge. He couldn't help but look at Naruto more closely, and she started thinking rather offensive things, and for good reason right now. Hinata was about to faint when she realized that the attractive young man in front of her was Naruto, her crush. She had thought he was attractive, but seeing him in this form made her feel even hotter. She was staring at the incredibly well-built frame of her crush, and she had no idea how he had gotten to be this way. However, she was not going to complain because her imagination started to generate offensive ideas that went against her typically shy and timid demeanor. After that, Akamaru sniffed the air near Naruto and gave a little yelp because the puppy could detect a strange scent, nothing dangerous, but somehow strange. At that moment, someone else, who was wearing purple and white and had glasses on, arrived on the scene and called them out. "Hey everyone, I advise you to be quiet while you're here. I assume you're the 9 rookies I recently learned about. all of whom are eager and new to the academy. Let me give you some straightforward but very useful advice. Don't be too loud or you'll offend people, which is a big mistake. And who are you? Unhappy to be diverted from observing Naruto and Sasuke, Ino inquired. The name's Kabuto Yakushi. After that, the group talked about what Kabuto knew about the Chunin exams, their history, the rationale behind their creation, the participants, the number of participating countries, and the villages Shikamaru moaned as Kabuto described the exams, how he had failed 6 times and that this was his 7th attempt, as well as the exam's actual purpose of keeping the number of ninja in the participating countries balanced. The statistics on Rock Lee and Gaara were then shown to Sasuke. When Kabuto showed his information cards, the other genin were shocked to learn that Gaara had been in a B-rank mission as a genin and had returned alive with no injuries, while his enemies had all died. This caused Shikamaru and other genin to become concerned. Sakura then noticed a new village with the symbol of a musical note, and she read the name. Have you heard of them, Kabuto-san? Hidden sound. I've never heard of them before. I've heard that there is a new ninja village in Rice Country, but nobody is aware of them or their village chief. They only sent one genin team, as far as I can tell. One genin, isn't that strange? Kabuto gave Naruto's question a nod. Yes, but for only one team to be sent, that means that the group must be very skilled to be the only team they have sent, or it could be because they have limited genin. Who knows? Like I said, they are a mystery group, so no one knows much about them at the moment. Sakura then asked Kabuto a question after noticing the faces of every genin team present. Do you believe that this time around will be particularly difficult? Oh yes, in my 4 years being here in the Chunin exams, I can tell you honestly that I've never seen a batch with this much potential in years. Then Kabuto spoke gravely. You guys will need to keep a very low profile, since if you try something, they will all certainly be very angry to say the least. They all are strong foes, so saying something to piss them off is not advisable. When Naruto gave it some thought, Sasuke and Sakura questioned whether Naruto's silence indicated that he was becoming afraid of everything Kabuto had told him. Kabuto acknowledged this and questioned whether the blonde Konoha genin with the sword on his back would be alarmed by the information he had been giving him and his classmates. Naruto-kun, is all of this frightening him? Perhaps I should speak with him after all. It's acceptable to feel afraid. Those guys are older and more seasoned than us because we're newbies. After everything we've been through to get here, please tell me the Dobi isn't going to quit now. Don't tell me he's going to choke on this. Naruto laughed aloud, then turned to face each of the other teams and gave them a fierce glare, so neither of them needed to worry. Alright, everyone, hold on. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm going to beat the living daylights out of you all. Show me how resilient you are. Please, have faith. In the opposite direction of the door, when Kakashi heard Naruto yell at every ninja in the room, he couldn't help but chuckle. Naruto was fine, and he was more than willing to fight them regardless of the odds, the blonde's opponent, or the number of them. The Jonin reflected on the moment when he, Asuma, and Kurenai had suggested their students, and he knew that once his fellow Jonin saw his team in action, things would get interesting. However, he had a pretty good feeling that some people would find Naruto's remarks offensive. Sakura was about to clonk her partner on the head, but she decided against it for 2 reasons. First, he had all the reasons to be completely confident with his newly discovered chakra reserves and abilities, and second, he was too tall for her to reach. Sasuke and Kabuto smiled at the announcement, while the other Konoha rookie 9 genin groaned, except for Hinata, who grinned warmly. As predicted by Kakashi, the rest of the genin were not pleased, and many of them were eager for an opportunity to teach Naruto a serious lesson about keeping his trap closed. The Sand siblings were among the groups, and Gaara smirked slightly while Kankuro gave a little growl. That's the same guy as before who nearly crushed my arm. Temari smiled and blushed a little as she glanced at Naruto and nodded. He's really got guts to be saying that. I like that. Konoha genin Team 10 was on the opposite side of the room, and Tenten, Lee, and Neji watched as the mood darkened as Naruto spoke, and Tenten sighed and grinned slightly as she remembered exactly what Naruto had said. That guy's something else, all right. He's certainly got spirit. As he examined Naruto, Neji responded, and Lee also spoke up. He's got fire and passion. I suppose he will be a real pain in the ass, won't he? But one group of genin had different plans. Have you heard what that person had to say about our hidden sound village? He referred to us as little mysteries. Zaku glared at Kabuto as he spoke. I heard. The only woman in their group, Kin, also spoke, to which Dosu replied. I think we need to teach this guy a lesson. I agree. Take away some of the mystery surrounding sound, assist him with his information, and warn him that he will have to face the repercussions if he offends the sound shinobi. The genin soon approached Kabuto, who could sense their approach, but at that moment, Naruto's biocomputer sent him a warning signal, and he soon saw them too. He didn't know what was wrong with the sound genin, but he wasn't going to sit around for long. The biocomputer in Naruto's body immediately started scanning the approaching sound genin. As soon as he moved in front of Kabuto to protect him from attack, it recognized them as threats to its master, and because there were two of them, it divided its scanning between Dosu and Zaku. Dangers detected. Searching. The first subject's threat level was established mid-class. The second subject's threat level was established mid-class. Levels of combined threat were established. They are almost significant. Level 2 weapon payloads have been activated. An optional lethal payload has been chosen. Level 1 defensive measures have been activated. Partial bio-armor defenses have been activated. When Dosu and Zaku entered, Naruto was ahead of Kabuto. The man with the wild hair taunted Naruto by firing multiple kunai while he put his arms up. "I'm sorry, handsome boy. You've left, Naruto." Then there was a flash of light on Naruto's arms, and then the light went out as a black liquid erupted out of them and started to form around them. Then the liquid solidified, and Naruto's arms were covered in futuristic-looking armor up to the elbow. The ninja in the room were shocked because they didn't know what it was, and as Naruto raised his left arm, they saw that his hand was in some kind of full metal glove with finger guards that gave his hands a black claw-like appearance. At the first power level, activate the kinetic energy barrier. The other ninja watched as the left gauntlet somehow opened a section of itself, and then a glowing sphere of energy appeared and surrounded Naruto and Kabuto. The kunai that Zaku threw bounced off the shield without even scratching it. At that point, Naruto decided it was time for payback. Dosu attempted to use his secret weapons, but to his surprise, the moment his arm struck the barrier, it violently threw him back a few feet with a crackle. Naruto looked at the gauntlets on his arm with some surprise, but that subsided as he smiled. "Yes, it's time for the show, gosh darn you, grab this." After Kin fired some senbon and Zaku yelled as he launched another round of kunai, Naruto decided to see what else might happen. The biocomputer then scanned the weapons and determined to deal with them as soon as possible. Turning on nano filament cables when the handguard launched tiny objects that swiftly exposed lines of some kind of metal, Naruto struck out with his right gauntlet and achieved his desired outcome in a novel way. The objects moved swiftly and only struck the kunai and senbon. Slish. The glowing strings that emerged from Naruto's bio-armor, which had effortlessly cut through the kunai and senbon that they had thrown, caused Zaku and Dosu to recoil in shock, and Kin followed suit. The sliced weapons fell to the ground, and Naruto grinned as he began to adjust to the weapons this black gunk was giving him. He liked it a lot. The nano-filament wires were instantly reeled back into Naruto's right gauntlet, and as he aimed his right hand at them and to the other ninja's eyes, and even at Naruto, who didn't know what the nano-filament wires were, a strange device emerged from the armor as the metal came alive, and there was some sort of launcher aimed directly at the two genin from sound. The other ninja in the room, including the Rookie 9, were visibly stunned when they saw Naruto's arms covered by what appeared to be armored gauntlets. Then Dosu addressed Naruto. "This has nothing to do with you, get out of our way." Naruto snorted, and then, to the surprise of the crowd, the left gauntlet appeared to undergo a section morph, revealing 3 claws from the handguard section. These claws were then covered in bright light, and the blonde responded as he assumed an attack position. He then chose to summon his chakra, not realizing that the enormous amounts of chakra he possessed as a result of the nanomachines were so powerful that even a small amount would be spectacular. As Naruto started to glow in a deep blue of chakra, the ninja in the room stared at him. Then, the wave of the release caused a gust of wind to blow through the room, forcing some of the ninja back at the intensity of the chakra Naruto was radiating. Naruto was covered in a glowing aura of pure concentrated chakra, and his eyes glowed with deep blue chakra as he spoke solemnly to the stunned sound genin. "Make me." There was a brief flash of light and the sound of rushing liquid as the blonde ninja's arms glowed, followed by the armor in front of them, and now he was literally glowing with chakra. Gaara and his siblings watched in awe as Naruto was prepared to fight, their gazes focused on the gauntlets that had appeared on the blonde's arms. Gaara was astonished. He had never experienced such power before. It was similar to the chakra level he possessed with his demon, but even more potent. He was thoroughly enjoying this and was excited to battle Naruto. "I want to kill someone with that much power." Temari couldn't stop staring at Naruto because she was so amazed. "Amazing. How much chakra in one man?" Kankuro glanced at Naruto while shaking his head. "Damn, and I thought that blonde brat was all hot air." Lee whistled at what he saw, wondering what would have happened if he had fought Naruto instead of Sasuke, because he suspected that the blonde ninja on Sasuke's team had concealed his true abilities during a previous battle with Sasuke. "That's amazing. Naruto-san, you even make Sasuke-san appear subdued. I wonder what would have happened if we had a fight." Since the human body could only produce a certain amount of chakra, Neji was afraid that using the Byakugan would cause him to become blind. However, this blonde genin before him had enough chakra to make him either an Anbu or a Jonin, or even more. This one is fascinating. It's amazing how he was able to keep so much chakra hidden. Tenten, who prided herself on being the best weapons expert in the village, was both stunned and greatly impressed by the weapons, which she had never seen before. Whoa, what has Naruto been consuming for so long? Shikamaru couldn't help but gape at the sight of that much chakra coming from Naruto, and he had a feeling that it was just the cherry on top. Right now Ino was also in disbelief, but she was really bothered by Naruto's buffed and attractive appearance. Choji was so stunned that he stopped eating the chips in his hands. Hinata was in awe of her attractive crush as he fought and moved in a way that captivated her, and she was astounded by his current level of power. The others watched as the situation escalated, but before it could get truly interesting, some new people arrived. A loud voice then came next. "All right, you baby-faced outlaws. Get into your seats and remain there until I personally staple your butts on them because the fun and games are over." The smoke cleared, and a big group of Chunin emerged from it, with a very tall, muscular man in the center. He was wearing a black trench coat, the typical Chunin proctor uniform, heavy gloves with metal plates on them, and a bandana with the leaf symbol on it as a forehead protector. His voice certainly didn't help matters as he spoke again, and the scar that ran from his left cheek to his lip was one of several scars on his face that made him look really scary. "It's time to begin the Chunin exams. I am Ibiki Morino, your proctor for today, and also your worst nightmare and enemy come to life. The area beyond the Konoha Academy. Dude, I almost thought I passed that difficult exam." As he walked with Sakura and Sasuke, Naruto said proudly that the three of them had passed the written first half of the Chunin exams. At first, Naruto's confidence was shaken by the written format, but he managed to pass the test with good or even better results. Naruto didn't mind at all as he sat down and prepared for the exams, but when he was informed of the rules, he felt as though he was going to be hanged. The situation unfolded when the genin was forced to relax, and he was as well. The armor on his hands and forearms returned to being liquid and faded away. Ever since that incident, everyone in the Chunin exams, except for the Chunin proctors, who weren't present, had been watching him closely. The ninja in the room were under a lot of pressure as soon as Ibiki finished explaining the rules and the exams began. Over time, the Chunin proctors and Ibiki himself gradually reduced the number of genin taking the Chunin exams by weeding out a number of the ninja. At that point, Sakura and Sasuke realized the true reason why the rules were so stringent and the questions so challenging. The only ways they could pass the papers were to either openly try to obtain the answers from the other ninja or cheat and obtain the answers without being discovered. Sakura was the most intelligent member of the group and could answer a lot of the questions, but Sasuke used his Sharingan to copy the answers from the different genin who were still working on the tests. The other genin realized right away that Kiba and Akamaru were already getting into the act, with Akamaru serving as the spotter. Since only Kiba could comprehend the barks Akamaru would make, they were safe because, although the dog was merely making noise, its enhanced senses as a canine actually gave the animal an advantage to aid his master. Shino also used his bugs to spy on the other students in order to identify who knew the answers to the questions, and the correct answers at that. This was made simple by the fact that the insects he used were flies, whose special vision made it possible for him to see the answers clearly. Due to their extensive study, Hinata and her cousin Neji were able to respond to the majority of the questions. Meanwhile, Tenten and Neji's teammates, Rock Lee and Tenten, were working side by side, with Tenten using a set of hidden mirrors and an almost undetectable wire. The blonde ninja had used her family's most well-known jutsu to target Sakura, and Shikamaru was also able to get the answer, as was Choji and Ino. Tamari would depend on Konkuru's use of his own puppet, while Gaara created an eye that replicated the genin's responses using sand in his chakra. In order to recover from the shock of Naruto's actions, Dosu and his fellow sound nin used their sound training to locate the appropriate individuals and use the sounds made by their hands and pencils to copy their responses. Overall, though, the ninjas were demonstrating their ability to obtain data more effectively than the other ninjas at the time. The biocomputer in his body had already studied the problems written in the papers, and its highly advanced data drives, processors, and core systems were able to break down and answer the questions in record time, so Naruto didn't need to cheat at all. The blonde, who was still unaware of the passive system in his body, was surprised that he was able to answer the questions and do well. Hinata had attempted to assist him covertly, but he told her not to because he didn't want her to be disqualified from the Chunin exams. Just as Anko made her appearance in a very interesting way and informed them that she would be handling the second phase of the training, he took the 10th question in his typical manner. Ibiki was impressed by him and let them pass the first stage of the Chunin exams with flying colors. Naruto turned to Sakura, excited for this next trial. Do you know what the second test is, Sakura-chan? After giving that some thought, Sakura shook her head. I'm sorry, but I have no clue at the moment about that, though I think that if the tests we took at the academy were any indication, the next test will test out our physical abilities and survival training. That's going to be harsh. The location for the second test must be one heck of a place. Although Sasuke remained silent, he glanced in Naruto's direction. He remembered how Naruto had defeated the three sound genin with ease and wondered what else the black gunk had done to him to give him such power. He didn't want to show it, but he was beginning to feel envious of the blonde's newfound skills and wondered what else the black gunk had done to Naruto. He put that out of his mind for the time being and said his customary goodbye to his group. We already know just where we're going to meet, so no sense being out for any more amount of time. Naruto then had a thought as Sasuke turned. Hey, why don't we at least go out to dinner together for once? We're a team, right? We all passed the first section of the Chunin exams, so we should celebrate for once. If nothing else, we should be glad we made it this far. After being subjected to the rules and the pressure of the test, Sakura was eager to unwind and enjoy herself, but she had to acknowledge that she was, for the time being, rather short on funds and could not afford to pay for a large meal fit for a break celebration. She was not happy with that and made her situation clear to Naruto and Sasuke. I wish I could join you guys, but I don't have that much money on me at the moment for a long celebration. But Naruto smiled and answered, no worries, Sakura-chan, I've managed to save all the money we've gotten on the missions we've had before the Chunin exams. It's not too big, so I can pitch in, and I have some stored in a safe place for a rainy day. Given how Naruto would consume ramen, Sasuke and Sakura were somewhat taken aback when they saw him. They had assumed he had run out of ramen to satisfy his regular cravings. You actually save your money? Are you really, Naruto? What are you talking about, Sasuke? Of course it's me, for crying out loud. And why the shock for learning I save my money? I do, and it helps when I save up when I have to buy other things, apart from my favorite ramen dishes. It's not that we doubt it's you, Naruto-kun, it's just that, you don't exactly strike up as the thrifty type at first glance. Naruto considered that and had to agree with Sakura and Sasuke's statements, but he wasn't too bothered because he received an annual donation from the Hokage, thanked the old man for the money, and made it a point to hide some of it in a small money box in his apartment. He also had other hiding places for any extra cash he couldn't keep in his box, which allowed him to pay for any necessities, no matter how expensive they were. He picked up this trick early on, and it was very helpful. I guess I have my ways of surprising you guys, but seriously, it's my treat for this day, so what do you say? After Sakura and Sasuke gave it some thought, the boy with the raven hair responded. All right then, I'm in, let me see if I can contribute something. Great, we'll meet up back here, see you guys. As Naruto made his way back to his apartment, he noticed Hinata strolling home. Thinking back to her past actions during the exams, he decided to express his gratitude to her. He was certain that if she had been caught, she might have been expelled and taken Shino, Kiba, and Akamaru with her, and he wasn't in the mood for that. After giving it some thought, he decided to see if Hinata would mind joining him and the other members of his team for their private celebration. Even though he thought she was shy, timid, and a little strange at times, she was genuinely a nice person and deserving of respect. He lowered himself, ran toward Hinata, and yelled at her. Hinata! Wait up! As she turned to face him, Hinata blushed when she saw her longtime crush and was taken aback by his sudden call. Since Naruto abruptly transformed into this attractive young man in front of her, the bashful girl has been even more drawn to him. Why yes, Naruto-kun. Hey, I wanted to thank you for doing what you did in the exams earlier, and I'm happy you were not caught. By the way, me and the gang's going to have a slight celebration for making it past the Chunin exams first stage. You want to join us? I too don't know, isn't it just for you guys? Normally yeah, but I don't mind you coming along. You also passed and I think you can celebrate with me, Sakura-chan, and Sasuke. Though it wasn't a serious date or anything, Hinata was ecstatic to be invited out to dinner by Naruto and nodded in agreement. It was also the first time she had ever gone out with Naruto, and even though there would be company, she would be content as long as Naruto was with her. Alright, Naruto-kun. Happily, Hinata went with Naruto to his apartment to retrieve some of his money that he had saved, and they headed to meet Sakura and Sasuke. In the Jonin's meeting room along with Kurenai and Asuma, Kakashi was seated and gazing out the window while they awaited Ibiki's announcement of the students' performance in the written portion of the Chunin exams. Although not as gifted as Naruto and Sasuke, Sakura had a sharp mind and intellect, excellent chakra control, and seemed to be the one who maintained harmony between the two. The Jonin in charge of Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke was certain that the team he led would be a firecracker of a team with his unwavering resolve, courage, and inner strength. Naruto was a formidable opponent, but he questioned how the Kyuubi and the devices in his body would function in this scenario. Another member of the team was Sasuke, who possessed a Sharingan. Naruto and Sasuke, in spite of their differences, made a strong team. Then Kurenai gazed out the window and sighed. Something up, Kurenai? Nothing, Kakashi. I have no doubts about Kiba, Akamaru, Shino, and Hinata doing well on their own in the exams. It's the second part that's got me a bit worried. Kakashi nodded because he knew exactly where Anko would send the students and that the teams would be put to the test. They will be all right. I know for a fact that your team is a full tracker team, and with their abilities, they will do just fine. After giving that a nod, Kurenai turned to face Kakashi. What about your group? Hey, like I told Guy, my team's very unique, they'll do all right. Asuma, who was beside them and smoked, concurred. We need to have faith in their respective talents. After all, they were formed because they are able to combine their strengths and offset their respective weak points. At that point, Ibiki showed up with the written exam results, and the Jonin went over the papers in front of them. Kurenai was pleased to see that her team had passed together. Hinata undoubtedly used her own intelligence and Byakugan to assist, while Shino and Kiba undoubtedly relied on their familiars, with Akamaru helping Kiba and Shino being supported by the bugs he could communicate with because of his innate abilities. When Shikamaru's actual intelligence was revealed, Ino undoubtedly employed her family's secret jutsu, and Choji would have had Ino's support. Asuma was pleased to see that his team had also passed when he saw that Sakura was passing because of her own intelligence and that Sasuke's paper had good answers. Kakashi was also pleased, but that's when he realized that Naruto's test paper was missing. Where's Naruto's Rin test results, Ibiki? With a smile, the special Jonin gave Kakashi the sheet. The Jonin's open eyes widened at what he saw, and rightfully so. Naruto had answered all 9 questions flawlessly, without a single erasure, and more. As he glanced at Ibiki, the Jonin had a nagging suspicion that perhaps Naruto's machines had contributed to the unexpected increase in his blonde Genin's IQ. Are you sure these are Naruto's test results, Ibiki? As sure as I am that my head looks like a mess without this on me. Ibiki responded by pointing to his bandana, which made it possible for Kurenai and Asuma to obtain Naruto's test results from Kakashi. For the time being, they were discussing the issue at hand, and both Jonin were aware of each other's surprise because Ibiki had a list of all the current Genin taking the written tests, as well as Naruto's files from the academy. He had a sneaking suspicion that Naruto would fail and bring the other team down with him, but his performance on the Chunin exams was completely different from his exam results in school. Naruto has gotten all the answers in the exams correct, and I had observed him, Kakashi. He didn't cheat at all, he didn't need to, he answered every question flawlessly, and that makes me very curious. Was his exam and test results in the academy genuine? They are genuine, Ibiki. He's been the last and poorest student according to his school records, as far as I know. Then kindly explain to me how the supposedly weakest and poorest student in the academy not only answered every question in the written exams flawlessly, but he had no cheated at all, because as far as I see it, he either has the ability to see the future in advance, or he's a lot smarter than he looks and is a great actor, because if he is, then he pulled a fast one on all of us. The same thing occurred to Asuma and Kurenai, who were shocked to learn that Naruto had completed all of the questions in a single sitting. This was an unprecedented accomplishment, particularly considering how poorly Naruto had performed academically in the academy. They were even more interested in Kakashi's team. Was there a possibility that they would actually be a formidable force in the Chunin exams? The following day, Anko then arrived as Naruto was surveying the forest, allowing the PD system to start a full-level scan of the entire area in front of it and determine what kinds of dangers were present in the forest that could be directed at its user. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke, as well as all the assembled Genin teams, looked at the fenced-off area of the Forest of Death, and the entire Genin bands couldn't help but feel something very creepy about this place. Numerous hostile predatory animals could be considered a significant threat at this time. After that, Anko showed up early and examined all of the students, paying particular attention to the blonde who had been able to view his test results. She was aware that Naruto had previously been regarded as the worst student in the academy, but the fact that he completed the questions in less than 10 minutes and was unwinding the entire time made her wonder if Iruka had been lying to them or if Naruto was actually much more promising than he appeared. She reminded them that since no one knew which team had the other half of the scroll, they would have to fight for it or steal it at all costs. She was finishing up her explanation of the rules for the second half of the Chunin exams, which involved obtaining the Heaven and Earth scrolls, which would enable them to get to the tower, where they were going for the semi-finals, within the given time frame, and not opening either scroll for any reason. As they were being given their scrolls and signing their waivers, Naruto turned to see Sakura and Ino fighting. with Ino's teammates observing the entire exchange. Then he turned to see Hinata smiling shyly as she approached him. "Yes, Hinata? NN Naruto-kun. I want to wish you luck in the forest, and be careful, okay?" Hinata blushed even more as she reached for something after Naruto nodded and grinned. "By the way, here, what's this?" Gazing at a cylindrical object that looked like a container for a piece of paper or rolled up film, Naruto asked before Kiba and Shino arrived. Hinata blushed and attempted to speak, but being so close to her attractive and well-built crush made that part of her plan impossible. Kiba then responded, "It's Hinata's healing ointment, Naruto." Naruto was a little taken aback because this was the first time he had received healing ointment. Before, he would have been cautious because some people had deceived him in the past by giving him powder that caused him to itch for days and also some kind of oil that attracted mosquitoes. However, Hinata was present, and he already knew that she was too shy and kind to do that to anyone, so it was nice to know that she wanted him to have healing ointment. "Wow, you're giving it me, Hinata?" Why yes. "Wow, thanks a bunch, Hinata. This can really come in handy. I got to go and good luck to you and the others, okay?" When Naruto shook Hinata's hands and took the ointment, the white-eyed, raven-haired girl turned red as she watched her crush return to join his team. The young Inuzuka grinned as Kiba and Akamaru turned to face Hinata. "Wow, you didn't faint this time, Hinata. Kiba-kun. Please stop that." Shino just watched as Kiba smiled and Akamaru let out a laugh. They and all the other teams hurried into the forest as the timer sounded for the Chunin exams to start, and Anko smiled as she heard some screaming going on right then and talked to herself. "I guess the games and fun are on." The forest attacked them with multiple exploding kunai that separated Naruto from the others just 30 minutes into the test, when Team 7 was searching for a way to the tower and a scroll of their own. Naruto had hardly time when two enormous snakes appeared out of nowhere. Sakura and Sasuke, meanwhile, were now up against an unknown person. The Persona Drive determined that in order to protect its master, it was time to unleash the armor. The level of threat is high, the armor is fully activated. At that point, Naruto was encircled by a tremendous glow of chakra, and the two snakes suddenly charged directly at the glowing figure if one looked closely. However, dark black liquid began to flow out of Naruto's skin and cover him, revealing his glowing eyes as the black liquid covered him in a full bodysuit. While the other Chunin were shocked and wondering who could have carried out such a vicious attack, Anko and the other Chunin examiners examined the bodies and discovered that they were the grass genin. However, their faces had been brutally and painfully removed. The special Jonin knew exactly who was responsible for this incident and knew that he was back. Orochimaru, her former sensei, one of the Sannin, a former student of their Hokage, one of the worst criminals to come from their village, and a traitor to boot. Turning, she ordered the Chunin to notify the Hokage and dispatch 3 ambush squads to assist her in locating Orochimaru. Nevertheless, she experienced a tremendous chakra release and pondered what was happening within the forest. As she ventured into the forest to find Orochimaru, she pondered the source of the enormous explosion and, despite its seeming impossibility, from whom. In the Death Forest, Sasuke and Sakura watched in disbelief as the enormous, armored figure that had emerged after tearing through the enormous snake that the enemy ninja had been riding on caught the attention of the grass genin. The two were cornered after the grass genin used a strong genjutsu on them as it chased them while they fled in terror. However, he retreated because something was approaching them directly, and the enormous snake was sent at the target before it was torn apart with the sickening sound of ripped flesh and skin. The entire body was covered in armor, but the joints and some exposed parts of the body had patches of pure black material. There were the forearm gauntlets that the two genin identified as belonging to the same Naruto who wore them during the Chunin exams, and the hands were once again fully armored. The upper arms were shielded by sections of armor that shared the same color scheme of black, white, and red, and the shoulder armor looked like it belonged in a fantasy armor set, but it moved smoothly and was smaller in size, but dense. The chest was shielded by a figure-hugging breastplate that was red and white with black rims and gold. The armor covered the chest elegantly, mimicking the best of the human form. The armor was slimmer and thicker, which made it extremely durable. The symbol of Konoha was displayed in the chest in a deep blue light. There were 3 nacellas on the back, 2 of which were angled, and 1 of which was pointing downward. The back also had a glowing circle of some kind. A set of pure white plates with red edges that contrasted with the flexible but incredibly durable black inner armor suit protected the stomach. The plates were shaped similarly to the abdominal muscles. Additionally, some sort of armor that covered the rear and crotch well and had flowing thigh armor protected the hips without limiting movement in any way. Her feet were covered in smooth, well-formed boots, and the thighs themselves were covered in pure white and red armor that ended close to the knees. White and red greaves protected the shins. Full face armor covered the face, and a thick forehead guard with the Konoha symbol etched in glowing blue was present, along with a flowing crest guard that moved back on top of the head with slightly thicker cheek guards. The face resembled that of a traditional ninja. On the cheek guards were 3 curved antennae that resembled horns, a visor that gave off a faint blue glow, and 2 deep blue glowing eyes. Imagine a combination of the armor of a Toha's Kara's and Technoman blade. The armor has the same design as a Technoman's, but it is slimmer and less bulky. Resembling the armor of a Kara's, it strikes the ideal balance between power, protection, speed, agility, firepower, and other elements. As he watched, the grass ninja spoke solemnly. "Who are you?" The armored figure turned and spoke in a somewhat mechanical but human tone. "I should be asking you the very same question. Who are you and what have you done to Sasuke and Sakura-chan? Answer me." Even though it sounded strange to them at the time, Sasuke and Sakura immediately recognized the armored figure when they heard the voice. "Naruto." The grass ninja watched with wide eyes and a grin that conveyed a great deal of surprise and shock. "Naruto, as in Naruto Uzumaki. Well now Naruto-kun. This is a surprise. What sort of costume is that? You know who I am, you snake summoning freak." However, Sasuke was still affected by the apparent genjutsu when he spoke with Naruto. "Don't waste time with this ninja, Naruto. Get the hell away from this guy." Even though his armor concealed his face, Naruto's armored face turned to face his teammate, and he was startled and a little enraged by Sasuke's current behavior. "What the heck are you saying, Sasuke? Damn it, Dobi. Just surrender the scroll. There's no way we can take this guy head-on in a fight. He's out of our league." The Persona Drive had already scanned the ninja to assess the newcomer's lethality to its master, user. Scan target, scanning evaluation finished. Subject exhibits high bioenergy, evidence of extensive genetic surgery, and enhancements found in subject, notable abilities and high levels of combat skill. Level 3 weapon systems and defensive systems are online and operational, with a lethal payload that is ready for use. Subject threat level to user. Dangerous. No way am I going to hand the scroll over to this nut. Besides, I don't think you'll be content with the scroll alone, Sasuke, and I am going to deal with him. If you're not going to, I don't think you're the real Sasuke. My teammate would not hesitate to attack no matter the odds. Then, turning to face the grass genin, Naruto spoke evenly while slightly cracking his knuckles. "I can bet that snake that tried to make me into its meal earlier was your pet, and you were after more than the scroll. If you really wanted the scroll, you could have already taken it from my team and left, but after what I've seen, you're here for another reason, and I can bet you're not a real grass ninja." "Oh, I can tell that you're not a normal ninja. I don't know who you are, or what you've done to my teammates, but I am going to make sure that you pay dearly for it." The grass ninja grinned and gave a highly disparaging response. "Really? My name is Orochimaru. I was a former leaf ninja, and one of the Sannin, and you say you can beat me? Let me see if you can." "Oh, you will." The Soul Eater Op Resonance by TM Revolution, a personal favorite of mine and one of the artists I listen to when creating stories like this one, served as the inspiration for the battle. Orochimaru had little to no warning as Naruto soared upwards while still holding him in a deadly and intimidating grip. The S-rank ninja swiftly unleashed his snakes at Naruto point blank, catching him off guard for a moment before releasing his hold on the former leaf ninja. Orochimaru then attacked as he landed on a nearby branch with his fist. The blow struck his armor on the face, but it barely caused Naruto's own face to move as Naruto returned with a powerful punch of his own, sending Orochimaru flying and slamming into a tree, barely recovering as Naruto punched at him again. The armored ninja's blow struck the tree with great force and impact, causing it to scream in devastation. Orochimaru moved in and kicked Naruto with a powerful kick, but to the Sannin's surprise, the side of his forearm released 3 curved blades that extended quickly and tore his chest, causing a huge tear to be heard as he leapt back. The two of them landed on the ground as Naruto made a flicking motion with his hands, and then 3 large, razor-sharpened needles emerged from his hands, which he unleashed at Orochimaru. The Sannin barely avoided the darts, but 2 of them ripped into Orochimaru, one in his left leg and the other in his right shoulder. Orochimaru had just time to undo the deeply buried needles when the ones he had escaped and buried themselves in a tree suddenly exploded violently, tearing the tree to shreds and splinters and covering Orochimaru with clouds. The darts in Orochimaru also exploded violently, shredding the tree to a jagged stump. The Sannin was still alive when he jumped out and was hit by some swords, but his left leg was blown apart below the knee, and his right arm and part of his torso had just been blown off. Naruto felt the swords bounce off his armor like they were toys as Orochimaru retreated and regained his limbs through regeneration, but the smug smirk was gone, and Orochimaru's face was replaced with a look of focus and rage. How on earth does he possess such power? Those darts were anything but typical. What kind of power is this? Had enough, Orochimaru, or do I have to bash you into nothing but fine paste? Careful, Naruto-kun. I am not going to be someone you can beat. Really? Could have fooled me. Bring it on, Orochimaru responded with a glare and an evil smirk after Naruto taunted him with a "come here" gesture. Cheeky little brat. Naruto and Orochimaru charged at each other, and although Orochimaru's blows were known to be quite powerful, Naruto's were far more devastating because the nanomachines in his body had already increased his strength and abilities. When the nanomachines activated the armor system, the blonde's abilities were increased to greater lengths, giving him a deadly advantage over his opponent as his blows struck with ever-increasing speed and impact. Orochimaru's own blows were either blocked by his defensive measures or by the armor, which started to irritate Orochimaru. Orochimaru launched a barrage of blows such as punches and kicks at Naruto, who blocked and retaliated as well. One kick to the head was blocked by Naruto's hand and he lashed out with a kick of his own that breaks Orochimaru's regenerated arm and forced him back as Naruto unleashed a strange launcher that appeared on his shoulder, and then a glowing ball of energy appeared and it was launched at high speed and slammed hard into Orochimaru. The energy sphere exploded in a storm of electrical charges that arced all over the Sannin and stunned him for a brief moment, but the charges did their job as Naruto quickly launched a barrage of blows, ranging from fierce jabs to the chest and stomach. Right hooks that smashed Orochimaru's face and body around like a punching dummy, and then a range of low and high kicks that further added the damage. Naruto launched a powerful uppercut that sent Orochimaru flying into the air, and he followed with an explosive burst of his armor's thrusters as they unleashed a powerful burst of energy to propel Naruto into the air. Orochimaru flew up through the canopy like a missile, and it was then that he recovered and tried to move, but Naruto appeared and spoke. "Where do you think you're going?" Naruto sent Orochimaru hurtling down with a powerful spinning heel kick to his shoulder, barely giving him time to react. He smashed hard into the ground, exploding with rock, debris, and vegetation as he went through multiple branches. A huge blade was aimed directly at Naruto's heart as he landed, and the blonde ninja ducked away as it extended greatly. The blade swung in a wide arc, and Orochimaru emerged from the smoke with a sword in his mouth. He retracted the blade, then released it, and now armed with the blade, launching an all-out attack on Naruto. Not a single gash appeared on Naruto's armor, not even in the places where the armor appeared to be the weakest, indicating that the black inner suit was just as durable as the outer armor plate. The blonde ninja dodged and evaded the blows, and while some of them did connect to Orochimaru's shock, the strange armor resisted the Kusanagi's attacks as if his weapon was very weak. After using his forearms to block another slash, Naruto somehow wished he had a weapon. The Persona Drive already had a solution. Melee weapon system selection access, selecting twin-bladed staff, swords with sonic resonance, item 34. Naruto received a somewhat strange, but very compelling command to reach behind him. He did so, and as he did, he felt something that felt like a handle. He grabbed it and slashed out at Orochimaru, who watched as a straight, single-edged blade that resembled a katana used by the Anbu ninja appeared, forcing him to flee. However, he was startled to discover that the clothing he was wearing on his chest had a deep gash that was almost like a long-handled, straight Nodashi sword. Where did that originate? The same thought crossed Naruto's mind, but he quickly deduced that the black gunk also came with this weapon system. He was smiling and preparing to fight in his helmet when another blade appeared from the other end of the handle, its edge reversed, giving the impression that it was a double-bladed staff. Naruto was ecstatic, holding the staff in the middle to his back and taunting Orochimaru to attack him by making the "come here" gesture. Orochimaru attacked with great speed and delivered a powerful slash to the neck, which Naruto blocked with seemingly no effort because his speed was able to outpace even Orochimaru's own speed as the two traded slashes and thrusts. He was considered a master kenjutsu because he was the best swordsman in Konoha, but this time he had to defend himself with twice as much effort because the double-bladed staff allowed Naruto to attack him from angles that really put his defense skills to the test. In addition, Naruto's strength and speed were growing, which allowed his attacks to move with blinding speed and strike with massive power as the two moved back and forth. The bigger threat was that the strange blades seemed to vibrate and hum in a very strange and almost invisible way. Rather than being stupid, the Sannin and S-ranked criminal was extremely cautious because he had many of these wounds on his body from light grazes from either blade. He discovered that even a small nick from the blades could cause gaping wounds. That is a very special weapon somehow. Even a small cut will be terrible. The vibrations on it must boost the weapon's cutting power to new heights. What's even more shocking is that not even my sword can match it. The Snake Sannin wondered if this was the class clown he had heard so much about, but it was true because Orochimaru could see that his blade was not even denting the weapon Naruto currently possessed. No matter how hard he attacked, Naruto would either block or avoid the blows with ease. This power was definitely not from the boy's demon resident. Orochimaru didn't have time to consider it because Naruto jumped up and, avoiding a downward slash, cut a nearby boulder in half. The blonde ninja's weapon then turned to face him and tore a clean gash on the stone, cutting it and the tree next to it in half in a single swing. Sakura and Sasuke were taken aback by Naruto's sudden and unexpected power. They were all aware that Orochimaru was an S-ranked ninja criminal who had conducted horrifying experiments on his fellow villagers years prior, had been exiled, and needed to be dealt with. Nevertheless, he was too strong a ninja to handle by himself, and even the best ninja of today were said to be incapable of even challenging him. And yet here was Naruto, dressed in amazing armor, with a variety of completely alien weapons, severely beating Orochimaru. Where did he obtain such authority? Naruto-kun. After that, Naruto pulled on the handle of his weapon, causing it to split in the middle. With two swords now in his possession, Naruto launched another attack on Orochimaru, using thrust and slash combinations. This made Orochimaru's defense efforts even more challenging because the blonde ninja had two blades to use and could switch between them with ease. And Orochimaru received a fatal attack when Naruto quickly swung out and cut off his arm. Then, he swung out with a powerful slash that split Orochimaru in two, sending the man flying. However, as he attempted to reconnect his body, Orochimaru attacked Naruto with more snakes from his arm. However, the snakes who had unlocked their swords from their mouths were blown away by Naruto's attacks, as he shredded them carelessly, and he charged directly at Orochimaru as he reconnected his upper body with his lower half. Don't think you can relax yet, Orochimaru. Then, Naruto had two launchers appear on his shoulders, and they unleashed a powerful barrage of the same armor's piercing high-explosive needles at Orochimaru. He managed to flip away, but the explosions were deafening because he was blinded by the flash and the smoke and dust. The blonde was using his armor's thrusters as he took Orochimaru for a ride, and they smashed through trees and even large boulders like a comet. When Naruto rose to the air and left the Forest of Death's canopy, he pushed Orochimaru off as the snake summoner looked as they landed back in the canopy. Naruto slashed downward and severed both arms with a clean downward slash. Orochimaru attempted to hide because he needed to heal, but the wounds were becoming fatal. Orochimaru felt frightened. Come out, Orochimaru. Naruto was momentarily stunned when his vision turned gray for a split second as the Persona Drive chose to turn on its X-ray scanning system after it had tuned itself to find Orochimaru. Active, X-ray scanner mode. When Naruto noticed Orochimaru quite a distance away, he shouted and smiled. I see you. Parts of Naruto's armor started to open to reveal glowing areas just as he was about to attack, but the Person Drive system decided to make it easier to kill the target. The glowing orbs then flared as the PD system used yet another potent weapon in the arsenal to kill Orochimaru. A strange symbol that looked like a triangle with three lines intersecting to lock on Orochimaru was seen by Naruto. The Searcher beam cannon banks are primed and ready to fire. Orochimaru had enough time to flee as he made his way through the forest after 28 glowing blue beams of destructive energy suddenly emerged from the weapon banks. To his surprise, however, the beams were able to make graceful and sharp turns and arcs as he attempted to avoid them. Wow, this is so awesome. The armor and the black gunk in me are far superior to the Sharingan. Watching the beams follow Orochimaru, Naruto pondered as he charged to pursue his enemy across the forest. How can that brat have this kind of power? These weird beams seem to be able to follow me everywhere I go. Orochimaru hardly had time to think as he made every effort to avoid the beams that were tracking him. However, they were relentless in their pursuit of the snake-summoning ninja, and it had come to a point where he had to abandon his own body. Such a risky mover opened his mouth, and his own hands emerged from his previous body as it was slammed hard by the beams. He looked and thought it was safe until 6 beams appeared through the smoke, and he hardly used his snakes to stop their attacks in time, and the ensuing explosion tore off his arms below the elbow. Naruto then launched another attack when he appeared, slamming a huge kick directly into Orochimaru's chest, and the two slammed hard into a nearby boulder, and the massive stone exploded like a tiny can of explosives, sending pieces of stone everywhere. Sakura and Sasuke had sufficiently recovered to follow the two as they tore the Forest of Death apart like two hungry alpha wolves after a meal as they watched the carnage unleashed by their armored teammate. Naruto emerged from the ashes and swiftly recombined his swords to their regular staff formation. The blades retracting, he then put the handle back into the armor, which absorbed it back in, and with one hand, he lifted Orochimaru's battered and ruined body and growled. Now you are going to get your guts rearranged. Not yet. Orochimaru then released a number of additional snakes from his mouth, which freed him. He then struck Naruto with a strong bite to stun him. Crunch. Orochimaru smiled, but as Naruto spoke in a very composed tone, his smile vanished. "Nice try, you freak, but your fangs are not going to work on this armor." Indeed, Orochimaru discovered that his teeth were unable to pierce deeply. In fact, his bite had not even broken Naruto's thin, incredibly flexible black inner armor suit. After grabbing Orochimaru's head, Naruto slammed his other fist into his stomach, causing him to reel as the blonde released him. Naruto then used the thrusters on the armor to propel himself forward, slamming his kick into Orochimaru's side and sending the S-ranked ninja flying through the forest like a missile and slamming hard into a nearby boulder just as Gaara and his siblings arrived. After Gaara defeated the waterfall genin who attempted to fight him and his siblings, the Sand siblings were heading toward the tower. After a brief argument between him and Kankuro, Temari calmed them down, and they continued on their way, but they turned as a blur crashed into a nearby boulder. They saw a figure emerge and heard a strange voice. "Naruto-kun, you are impressive. Even if you are not Uchiha, you are no ordinary foe." The three turned to see the strange ninja and an armored figure emerge from the smoke and dust and land in front of them. The armored figure was unexpected. Temari, Kankuro, and even Gaara, despite his emotionless exterior, backed away as the figure moved with unnatural speed. The grass ninja barely had time to react before he was thrown aside by Naruto as he fired another barrage of bright blue beams that surrounded the stricken ninja, who screamed fatally as the beams consumed him in a bright light and exploded in a massive shockwave. As the shockwaves subsided, nothing seemed to be left until bits and pieces hit the ground, charred beyond recognition. The tall figure's face armor started to glow, appeared to turn liquid, and eventually fade away as Gaara and his siblings watched the tall, armored warrior land on the ground. The blonde ninja sighed and turned as Sakura and Sasuke entered the scene, confirming that it was indeed Naruto. Gaara was very tempted to fight the Uchiha and the blonde ninja to see who would prevail, but he chose to wait for a much better moment and he and his siblings left, but not before Temari noticed that the armor began to glow a little, turn liquid, and eventually fade away, leaving Naruto in his clothes. As the teams started to assemble in the direction of the tower, the objective of the mission to pass the second section of the Chunin exams, it appeared that a lot would happen when the second stage of the exams began. However, Naruto sat down and sighed because he was a little worn out. It seems that the armor and the devices in his body had limitations because he was so worn out that he left Sakura and Sasuke, who were now recovered, to watch over their blonde teammate while he recovered. However, this time, a white snake that was battered and bleeding red blood moved away, but not before giving a certain blonde a hateful glare, in the crater where Orochimaru had just been reduced to nothing but ash and was now resting. "I will get my retribution, Naruto-kun, and you will pay a heavy price for getting in the way of my plans." But for the time being, Orochimaru needed to rest and recuperate because his body had been strained to its breaking point and he needed to recover and get away. His plans had to be changed until he was well again. Orochimaru, who was barely alive, was able to conceal himself and avoid capture for the time being when Anko arrived on the scene. In the Death Forest, as Sakura and Sasuke watched in astonishment as the blonde genin was able to swim like a fish in the water and chase said fish with amazing speed, Naruto dove deep into the nearby lake and was pursuing the target in the water without surfacing for air too many times. This was Naruto's 8th fish of the day. Sakura watched in complete awe of Naruto's ability to stay underwater for almost 3 hours without coming up for air, taking a big gulp without even pausing, and then diving back into the water. The fish that Naruto had previously caught was also nearby. Even the best Jonin would struggle to stay underwater for that long, so Sasuke was astounded by Naruto's ability to stay underwater for so long. "How the heck is he doing it? I wish I knew, Sasuke-kun." Sakura and Sasuke were unaware that the blonde genin's body had been modified for purposes other than fighting. Naruto was able to breathe and stay underwater for much longer than usual because the nano machines had created specially regulated pockets of soda lime in his lungs that converted the carbon dioxide in his lungs back into pure oxygen. In addition, the fact that the nano machines were increasing his lung capacity to the maximum allowed him to stay underwater for even longer, and the augmentations allowed him to swim faster and better than normal ninja. The nano machines also created a thin layer of energy that actually decreased his body's natural water resistance, enabling him to move in the water much more quickly than usual. Naruto chased after the fish, caught it, and went up to the water as fast as a gunshot. He literally jumped out of the water like a dolphin, landed on the ground with grace, and held his most recent catch. All right, time to eat. As the day went on, Naruto and his group were currently near the lake, enjoying the deliciously prepared fish. It had been at least a day since the fight with Orochimaru, and how Naruto had almost killed him. Anko and a few ANBU's arrival was enough to add some excitement. She turned and gave Naruto a warm smile after the Anbu and Anko left the area, allowing the team to continue their journey to the Hokage Tower. The Jonin found the battle between Naruto and Orochimaru to be quite interesting, and she had a hunch that she would report the incident to the Konoha Council members. As he ate the food in silence, Sasuke couldn't help but look at Naruto and try to understand what had happened. In all honesty, he had to acknowledge that Naruto's skills were more than enough to dwarf even his Sharingan, and he was currently feeling something for Naruto that even startled him, namely jealousy. But instead of worrying about his companion's thoughts, Naruto was contentedly concentrating on sating his hunger. He finished the fish he was eating and then relaxed. Considering their next course of action, they still had their scroll, but they needed the other one to reach the tower. Guys, do you think we can find another team to steal a scroll from? Maybe Naruto-kun, but it's been 2 days and we have to yet run into another team from any of the other villages at the moment. Maybe you should just transform and go out and find one team. Considering your new abilities, Naruto, you'd have no problem. But Naruto answered Sasuke, "It's not that simple, you know. I get the feeling that armor only comes out if I am in danger." "Really? How can you be so sure about that, Naruto-kun?" Then, turning to Sakura, Naruto shook his head a little, not understanding why he knew that. "I can't really be sure, but the armor only activated when I was under attack, and the only time the full armor came out was when I was in real danger. I guess the black gunk will only activate the full armor if it senses that the danger to me is great enough for it to activate the armor system."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.